Good morning. This is the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 86. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. So I am extremely fortunate with the amazing people I get to meet because of what I do with Echelon Front and also the connections I have with Origin and Jocko Fuel. I have made some incredible connections, relationships, and friendships with just absolutely incredible humans at Origin Immersion Camp over the last couple of years. It is, as my wife knows, a non-negotiable. It is on my calendar every year that I have it. I block it off. I don't get booked for work. And if I can bring my family, it's a benefit. If not, I'm still there because of one, the jiu-jitsu is incredible. The instruction is amazing. But as I've come to find over the last, 2, 3, 4 recent years is the relationships, the friendships that I've been able to gain there. And today, Lucas and I get to sit down with an incredible man of God that I met at immersion camp, I think 4 or 5 years ago. He's a man of service who serves his community. He has a great career with his great career in law enforcement, trains jiu-jitsu, loves the Lord, family man, and is genuine with his heart to help and serve others. He also owns his own jiu-jitsu academy that is an affiliate of Double Five Jiu-Jitsu under Formiga, and I'm looking forward to learning more about his life and the lessons that we can all apply to our own lives as we strive to be better versions each and every day. Aaron, how are you, brother?
I'm good.
Let's go, man.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Lucas, what's up, buddy?
I feel emasculated. Aaron came in with his whole entourage of people, and they've just been looking. They know I'm a white belt. And they've just been looking at me like a fresh meat since I entered my building.
Well, are they inaccurate?
They've been no.
Okay.
They've been pretty gentle though so far.
Yeah, so far. We'll see. I know.
I appreciate a gentle upper belt.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Okay, so Aaron, let's dive into your childhood a little bit.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up, and siblings, parents? What was that family situation like?
Yeah. So we kind of have a unique family. I grew up in Warsaw, Indiana, so it's kind of a smaller town, and then we were raised in Etna Green, which is even a smaller town. If there's 1,500 people in that town, I'd be surprised.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's real small. So we originally there was 5 of us kids. I had 2 older sisters, and then my brother, and then 1 younger sister, and then our cousins. They were in a real bad way with their parents. My mom's brother, he was a truck driver, and his wife and him had all sorts of addiction issues and things, and he actually tried to kill himself and his wife by crashing themselves into a tree.
Oh my gosh.
And succeeded in killing himself, but not his wife. She just got really messed up. And my parents took their 3 daughters into our home. So when I was pretty young, so I think when they got there, I was in like maybe the third or 4th grade, I think.
Wow. So
from that point on, there was some custody stuff going on, and their mom was just not in a position to do anything with them. So she actually gave our parents custody, or actually she didn't show up for the hearing, so by default we got custody.
Okay.
And then my parents, I'm not sure if we actually adopted them or not, but they were, legal guardianship was transferred to them, so they just kind of became part of our family. So we went from 5 to 8. And
like overnight.
Yeah. So
crazy.
that was a pretty big adjustment, but
Were all those cousins younger than y'all, or were they just kind of mixed in?
One of them's like my age. She's like a few months older than me, I think, and then the rest of them are younger. One like a year younger, and the other one like 2 years younger.
Dude, that's gotta change the family dynamic pretty drastically.
Yeah, and because our house, when we grew up, my dad actually still lives in the same house. There was only 2 bedrooms, so we figured it out. My parents moved into the basement where there wasn't really a room, but they just kind of like fashioned one together. And then my brother and I slept in a room with one of our sisters when we were younger, and then it was the biggest fiasco was in the morning trying to get ready for school.
There was what, 1 full bath maybe?
1 bath, yeah. There were shifts. Literally, you'd get up we'd start at like 4 a.m. You'd take your shower, and then they'd come in and wake you up. You'd go get yours, and so that's how we would start every day for school. So it was kind of buck wild there for a while.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But as you think about it, it's also not, unfortunately, a very uncommon thing.
Yeah,
As you just meet more people and learn more about family dynamics, people are doing that stuff often.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you guys had a very close relationship growing up with that many people in one house.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's going to be drama associated with
for
that.
sure,
but
yeah. I was always getting in trouble because I was not really necessarily doing bad stuff, like evil stuff. I was kind of rough around the edges. I was feral.
Wild. Yeah, feral. Okay. Yep. As I'm getting ready to say wild, you're like feral.
Yeah, yeah. I was outside most of the time.
Child.
I was
Free range child.
I didn't like to be held down. But
Nothing wrong with that.
For us, it just, I mean, because it happened, and I think probably the circumstance itself wasn't good, but because it happened when everybody was so young, it just was normal to us. So growing up, like even now, I don't make a distinction, when I'm talking to people that they're my cousin. That's
your family.
That's my sister.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Man.
So I mean, and it rarely ever comes up that I have to say, what the dynamic was. So I just introduce them as my sister. So when people ask, I always tell them, I've got 6 sisters and a brother. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's the way it should be with family.
Yeah. Our family is very unique. On my dad's side, the Price side, we are all, it's a huge family, and we are all very close. We still do like big family get-togethers and stuff like that. My brother is still my best friend. He's a trooper also, so we work together, and we're all still really close. 2 of our sisters moved out of state, but we still keep in regular contact with them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a pretty legitimate life-defining moment at a young age.
Sure.
Kind of putting you on the spot, but as you think back to that time in your life, like, what did you take from that that's helped you just be who you are as a human?
I mean, the biggest thing that I took from that is just like my parents stepping out, and it didn't really matter, what the circumstance was or what happened or that it was going to be an inconvenience, because it was. I mean, we didn't have the room for them. My mom at the time wasn't working, so my dad, he worked in the RV industry, so he was working, and he was the only one working, and my mom would work off and on part-time. So we really didn't have the money to take them in, and it was a very hard dynamic. But what I took from that was it doesn't really matter what the circumstances are, is you have to do what is right. And that's what my dad always told me, and also family. I mean, at the end of the day, when you don't have anybody else, you should have your family to turn to that's kind of always got your back. Not afraid to tell you when you're stepping out of line, but at the same time, they're not going to abandon you. So that's what I took from that, was the biggest thing, is you always do what's right, no matter what the circumstances, no matter how much it's going to inconvenience you. Step out and do what you have to do.
That's awesome. That reminds me, I was talking with one of my pastors from my church a few weeks ago, and I'm going to butcher exactly what he said, but I'm not going to grab my notebook and quote it verbatim. But it just reminds me of just this thought process, as he was saying, when God calls us into things, he is going to provide. But it's not for us to define what those provisions should look like. And so he called you guys to do that. Your parents answered that call, and it definitely added some stress and some burden to the family, but you do the right things for the right reasons, and God's going to provide.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and like I said, as kids, I mean, it was definitely, the dynamic was hard getting used to each other at first, and they were all from the South, so they had Southern accents, and we'd make fun of them, and it was, it's a back and forth thing, but, we were up against it, but as kids, we didn't really know that.
Yeah.
We knew that this was the right thing to do, so we just did it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you play any sports growing up?
Not really. I ran some track and stuff like that, but like I said, I was feral, so growing up, my grandpa was my best friend, my mentor, and he was a real outdoorsy guy. He was a trapper and a hunter most of his life, and so that's where I wanted to be, was just in the woods doing stuff. I did martial arts starting at like 12. Nice. With Taekwondo. So I've actually been doing martial arts for close to 20 years, but that was really the only thing I did. I just didn't have interest in doing that. I wanted to be outside, getting dirty, climbing trees.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that was me.
That's cool. What was high school like for you as a student? I mean, I'm willing to bet the feralness stayed with you for a while.
It did, yeah, for sure. I was a goofball. Yeah. I mean, my cousin always tells me I was a space cadet, but I was in the early part of it, I really didn't apply myself hard and like I should have. But at the later end of my high school career, I really started realizing, hey, I better, pay attention to what I'm doing. So I did a little bit better, and I ended up graduating fine. But school was just not a priority for me. Growing up, I did not care. I did what I had to do, and that's about it.
Yeah. What was the shift? Did somebody say something to you? Was it a family member? Was it a teacher? Or did you just realize it on your own? Like, hey, maybe I should now, while school isn't ideal for most kids, the traditional school setup, I will say, is not ideal for most. That's why our kids are homeschooled. I mean, that's been their choice. They liked it. Aiden stayed in high school because we had just moved here, for junior high. He was making some new friends and he wanted to wrestle. And so for him being in school, that was important. But our daughters have zero interest with the regular school system. Zero. We actually use it as a form of like we'll use that to threaten them. Like, hey, if you don't do this, we're putting you in school. And they're like, no! It's like the worst thing ever.
I'll send you back to regular school.
Yeah, exactly. And they just they despise the structure of regular schools and just how it puts you in a box. So was that part of, because of your nature, it was hard.
Yeah, for sure.
But where was your aha moment of like, hey man, like this is not ideal, but this is a situation I'm in. I need to start applying myself.
Well, I think the sister or cousin that was just a couple of years or months older than me, she was in the same grade. Mm-hmm. And so she was really pushing hard toward a career. And so when I paid attention to that and I saw that she was trying to set herself up for college and all that other stuff, I realized that I better buckle down or I'm not even going to be able to get out of this building. And so just kind of like applying myself, hard work, dedication, which was always something that was taught to me by my grandpa and my dad growing up. We did everything, by hand, and just sweat equity basically is what we learned growing up. I remember we heated our house at the time with a wood stove. In fact, my dad still has the wood stove, and at the youngest age that I can remember, I was out carrying in wood and stacking it and chopping it and cutting, and we just did all that stuff. So I think it was just a combination of that and me just getting to that point where I realized that I better take control of this, or otherwise, I'm going to fail or have a problem with it.
What were your plans when you were going to graduate?
So my my high school career up to that point was all staged around being a Navy test pilot. Cool. So all my courses and stuff were geared toward that. And that's the trajectory I graduated on. But after that, I don't know if everything from the home life and just the general not giving a crap about anything at the time, but that kind of derailed that, and I went straight into the workforce after I graduated. So
nice.
Yeah, I didn't follow through with that.
All good. What year did you graduate?
2002.
Okay, 2002. Yeah. So 9/11 happened when you were a senior.
Yep.
Okay.
I remember exactly where I was at when that happened. Yep.
Yeah. What was that like for you?
I just couldn't believe my eyes what I was seeing. So we always had these morning announcements, and Mrs. Benj, actually one of my favorite teachers, history teachers, came in and she was just like, "Oh my gosh, guys, you got to watch this!" And she turned the TV on, and we watched both planes hit at that time. So
it's crazy.
I didn't know. I had a mix of emotions, and I think I just stuck my head in the sand about it. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. You're in your senior year of high school. It's like, hey, what do you like? You can't do anything at the time about it.
Yeah. I mean, I was, military service was always on my mind, so I was motivated in that way. But at the same time, I was, just kind of lackadaisical and irresponsible. Yeah. With my extracurricular activities. So,
was military a part of anybody else in your family?
Yeah. So my sister Bridget, she actually joined the Air Force when she graduated.
Nice.
And she was out in California and then Florida, I think, stationed a couple different times. She's out now, but
awesome.
Yeah.
My sister went into the Air Force as well.
Yeah.
And now she's going back in 20 years later as an officer. So crazy.
So what got me started on it is my one of my cousins from my dad's side. They lived down in Georgia, but he was a Ranger.
Oh, dude.
And he actually died in an AC-130 crash. There's a memorial and stuff about him. His name is Danny Price. Someone wrote a book about it, I think, actually. I don't know what that book is, but I could get it for you. Yeah. Where he actually dove underneath and blocked part of the wreckage from another soldier and allowed them to crawl out and he died underneath the plane. But
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
What year was that? Do you know?
I don't know for sure off the
Okay.
top of my head. I was still young.
Okay, so you're young. So this wasn't like
Yeah.
a post 9/11 type of thing.
No.
Okay.
This is before that. Yeah, and it was in the 90s.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you heard about that, so that's always kind of in the back of your
Yeah,
mind. Okay.
and they would always come up this summer, so I knew who he was. Like he was a real awesome dude. But
Yeah. Army Rangers are legit, man.
yeah, he was tough.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
tend to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so you graduate high school. What's next for you?
Well, my parents got divorced right as I was graduating high school, so that was kind of a rough transition for me, and that was another part that played into that. It was a rough transition into adulthood there, but my grandpa had died in '99, and so I wanted to get away from my mom, who at the time her and I weren't getting along very well. I moved into my grandma's house to help my grandma, but then also get away from that situation. And I started working in the RV factory like my dad did.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How long did you do that before your next move?
About 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's life like working in an RV factory?
Hurry up.
Just
Hurry up. Get hot is the word we always use. Like get hot, move. You know, it's just because it was
That's awesome.
a rate bonus, so it's kind of weird how it works, but you get paid by the hour, but you also get paid more if you're done quicker. So you get a hitch bonus per how many units you get out. So if we could get there at 5 a.m. and bust all the units out that we needed for the day, and then leave by noon, we actually made more money. So it was all about just get hot.
dude, let's go.
Just move, just pushing people over, making it as fast as you can, and kicking them out the door.
Yeah, that's
So-
crazy. My dad, we had lunch with my parents on Sunday for Mother's Day, and we were just talking, just general conversation, and brought up construction that my dad did,
Yeah.
and very hard work.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy hearing just the different times, and where sometimes they got paid by the hour, and sometimes they got paid by what they did, and they called it piecework.
Yeah.
And so the
Yep.
harder you work, the faster you work, the better you did, the more you made.
Pretty much. That's
So-
same sort of deal.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So how long? So you did that for 4 years, and then what was next for you?
So after that, I went to work at an orthopedic company where I was in the distribution section there. So, and then I worked my way up from there to supervisor.
Nice.
And then from there went to law enforcement.
Okay. What was? I mean, that's a unique transition to law enforcement.
Yeah.
Why?
So I did a little bit of National Guard stuff while I was still working at the RV factory, but when I was getting ready to ship out for training, I got like the worst case of bronchitis in the universe. And we had drill that weekend. So I went up to the head guy, who had no interest in helping me. But I was like,
very common.
I was like,
unfortunately.
hey, I'm not good. We did a PT test and I passed, but I said, I'm not good. And they just said, keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, don't say nothing, and ship out. And I was like, roger that. So I did. And right before we shipped all the way out to Missouri, we had to run back through MEPS, and they flagged me, obviously,
Yeah.
because I couldn't even talk. I mean, I had no voice.
I'm sorry for laughing, but it's like,
No, it was bad. It was bad. And I was like, it was just nasty, just coughing up this green mucus. In fact, when they pulled me back up to yell at me for getting flagged in MEPS, he thought I had chew in my mouth, and it wasn't chew. It was just all that crap that was in my lungs and throat. I was like, bro.
dude, that is bad.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So to be honest with you, a lot of that, I look back on that now and think there's a lot of things I could have done better or different that would have changed that, and I should have. So I don't hold any of those guys accountable, because I'm only responsible for what action I played in that. But at the time, it put a really bad taste in my mouth with the whole thing. So I was just like, you know what? Yeah, well, I washed my hands of it and walked away.
Okay.
And they were happy to let me go. So
Interesting.
yeah.
That's unfortunate when you hear stories about bad leadership from the military.
Yeah.
I mean, now we know things happen for a reason, and we have our past, but it just, you hear so many stories about bad leadership and how it affects organizations. And in the military, when you have bad leaders, they lost someone like you who would have been an asset to the unit. You would have been an asset, but man, that's got to be frustrating. How long did you hold on to that frustration towards them? I mean, obviously you're older now, you're more mature now, and like you just said, like, hey, I don't hold them accountable. It was my responsibility. Not a lot of people in their early 20s, mid 20s think that way.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was.
And so I'm willing to bet you had a little bit of animosity and resentment for a while.
Yep. And then I still knew that was, the warrior path was a direction I needed to go. And this time I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fool around with that nonsense. I'm just going to go special forces. So that's when I started digging into the SEALs and trying to go that route. And it was ultimately that discharge from that situation that held me back. They just didn't want to give me a waiver for it for whatever dumb reason. I had all the paperwork they would have needed to allow me to go. My PST scores were, they weren't like, holy smokes, let's send this guy to the Olympics. But, I was smoking people that were half my age. Yeah. And, it was... But ultimately, they didn't want to give me. I talked to everybody I could talk to about it. I mean, they sent me to a pulmonary specialist because of the lungs thing. That's what they were concerned about. So he actually gave me. He was a retired Army colonel. He sits me down. It was real awkward. I go in there and he's like staring at me from across the room. This Indian dude, and he sits down in a chair and he gets like so awkwardly close to me. He's like in my face. I'm like, what? He goes, I'm a retired Army colonel. If you can pass my test, I will personally write you a letter of recommendation that will get you in. But if you're lying to me, we're going to have a problem. I said, I'm not lying. I'll do whatever you want me to do. So I ran through his tests. He's like, nope, you're good. Signs the paperwork. I take that. Ultimately, they just didn't care. I don't know.
That's frustrating.
Yeah. But you got to look at it from this standpoint, too. I mean, and again, at the time, I remember when I got the letter back after everything that I put into it trying to fight it, where they basically were like, hey, stop. We're not interested. I went outside and I was mowing the yard on my zero turn and, I'm bawling my eyes out. Stacy, my wife's running beside me like, just stop. I want to talk to you. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, I was, because I trained so hard and worked so hard to try to get to that point. And, but looking at it now, it's like, I'm, one dude out of how many people those guys see come across their desk.
So was this the Navy that wasn't accepting the waiver or the Army? Oh, wow.
Yeah, Navy. Yeah.
That's a hard one in the SEAL community because especially anything dealing with lungs.
Yeah.
Like we've had guys die in training.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of lung issues that they hid from the command. And so it's a real thing.
But yeah. And I totally understand that.
Now it's hard back then.
Yeah. The frustrating point at the time was that I laid bare everything that was and went to their specialist, which I paid out of my own pocket.
Jeez.
To do all those tests, to have the paperwork to give to them and say, hey, look, I'm good. And ultimately they still didn't want to do it. So.
Okay. How long did you hold on to that, and then what portion of that was unhealthy and what portion of that has been healthy for your drive and what you do?
That's a good question. So I think there's times that it has still come up in the back of my head where Satan will try to use it against me, and actually just recently I went and saw that movie Warfare.
Phenomenal movie.
Oh my gosh. It was like, but for me being in that room and I was watching that and I was like, I know it sounds dumb, but I was like, that should have been me.
No, it doesn't sound dumb.
And
I tried to stay with that task unit. I wanted to stay with them. But, I had cut my finger, missed out on that operation that Mikey got killed on, and I was escorting Mikey's body home, and I wanted to go back, and it just didn't work out. So it's not dumb for you to think that.
It when things like that come up, sometimes it still is in the back of my head, and it takes me a few hours to sort through it sometimes, and I just got to be quiet and let God speak through that. And
I like that you said that. Just be quiet and let God speak through it.
Yeah, because if I allow my head to spiral out of control thinking about it, I'll end up in a bad place, and then I'm just angry and prone to so many dumb things.
Well, yeah, that's what the devil wants to do is create that anger, frustration, separation, isolation.
Yeah.
That's where he wins is when he gets us isolated. It's hard. It's, you can't play the shoulda, woulda, coulda game.
Yeah. And that took me a long time to learn because that was rough. But I always tell people now when I'm talking about that story, because the amount of time and effort that I put into training and getting myself ready for it, it definitely developed in me a mental toughness that I wouldn't have had before. It changed who I was as a human, for sure. And I look back on that, and I always quote people back to Scripture where it says that, where God says that He works everything to the better of those that believe. And I still believe that he even though He knew the outcome of what was going to happen there, He needed me to go through that crucible so that I could change, and then He could actually be like, okay, now I can use you to do what you're supposed to do.
Dude, that's awesome.
Beforehand, you were kind of a turd. Now, but I need you to know, I need you to understand you can do way more than what you think.
Man, that's good.
And I see that now, but it was rough in the moment.
That's
for
good.
Sure.
How'd you meet your wife?
So I actually met her when I was 15. So my mom was working at a gas station, and I still remember the day. The first day I saw her, I walked in there to the gas station where my mom was working because I was baling hay for a local farmer down the road. And stopped in there to get some snacks, and I saw her walk back, and I'm like, who was that? And it turned out to be the gas station owner's daughter. And I eventually worked my way into working at that gas station.
Just so you could meet her?
So, yeah.
That's amazing. Let's go.
And she didn't like me at all because I was like real fast-paced, hard worker. So sometimes I'd screw the register up. She'd come out and yell at me, like, slow down, do it right. And I'm like, so it was kind of a love-hate relationship there first. But but I didn't care because she was hot. So I just,
We've all outkicked our coverage, clearly.
Oh, dude.
So I get it. It's like, oh, cool.
Yeah. So, that's how I met her when I was 15. And then right about the time that I started driving, so between 16 and 17, we kind of dated off and on. And we got married when I was 20. She had just turned 21.
Nice.
So
that's awesome. So, how long did you guys date before you got engaged and then married?
Well, so from 16, we kind of dated off and on, a little bit. And then when I turned 19, we were pretty steady. And I already knew,
Let's go.
I already knew. So, I planned it out and asked her to marry me, and, there's no looking back.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So married over 20 years-ish?
Be 21 this July.
Dude, what a blessing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Bro, how many kids?
2.
Nice. How old are your kids?
William, he just turned 9, so his birthday was actually last weekend, and Cora will turn 6 in June.
Strong name.
Yeah.
I like that.
We share that.
Let's go. Okay, so your wife has been a part of all of these journeys.
Yes.
Dude, that's,
Yep.
I love it. So what was the transition? What was your, like, hey, I need to go into law enforcement moment?
So right about the time that I started pursuing the SEAL thing, my brother, he was an accountant of all things. I mean, just super nerdy in his head, just one of the smartest people I know.
Yeah, he's very intelligent.
Yeah, extremely intelligent. He could read something. In fact, when we fly with the state for marijuana eradication, he's had the chance a few times to fly the machines, and the pilots will explain it to him, and he'll remember it and just do it. Like he's nuts. I didn't get any of that. I'm a knuckle dragger. Like
That's not fully true. I mean, you are a knuckle dragger, but you're an educated or an intelligent knuckle dragger.
I like to say I project that I'm educated, but really it's just like
That's why I said intelligent. Yeah. Right? Intelligence and education are two different
when
things.
all else fails, I just break stuff.
Well, it's a good method. It's a good method, and your brother can fix it and put it back together.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he started pursuing the state police because he knew it wasn't right for him. We both just had that dog in us, I guess, and much to my mom and dad's chagrin. And then when I got the notice that the Navy wasn't going to take me, John approached me and said, "Hey, why don't you come work with me?" And to be honest, I had never even thought about law enforcement at all. It wasn't on my radar at all. And I was like, yeah, I know that I'm being called into something else, and I can't stay where I'm at. So I applied and got in the first time, which is kind of rare for the state.
So state, as in state trooper.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is that not a common thing to get in there right away?
There's just a lot of hoops that you have to jump through, going through the process to get accepted to the academy. So the state police, I'm not sure how. I think most state agencies are this way, but for Indiana, it's you are not a certified law enforcement officer until you graduate the academy. So you have to go through a selection process, which was at the time about 6 months, and then an academy, which is about 6 months. And then only at that point do they give you law enforcement powers? Whereas a lot of the local agencies and cities and stuff like that, they spend time on the road first and then go to the academy. So it's a little bit different as far as that goes on how that happens. But what was your question?
I was just wondering how you got into it. And, you know, what was the process?
Yeah. So the beginning process, once you apply online, once the applications become open, and then they start sending you information. You got to go down and take a written test. And then from there you have to take, which is the worst part. It sucks so bad. But you have to take a polygraph. And there's no question off the table during that polygraph. It's the worst experience of your life. You will come out of there feeling like, I should just go over here and
just sit in the corner.
Just don't talk to me anymore. I'm a worthless human being. That was the worst experience. You go through a psych eval. They come to your house and interview you. It's a big background check, and then another psych where you go back and you'll talk about what you talked about on the polygraph, just to make sure that you're not
everything's verified.
Yeah. Nice. So you're mentally capable of doing the job. You have to take a physical assessment as well. And then usually the written test and the physical assessment are right up front because that weeds a lot of people out.
Yeah.
And then from there, if you pass all that, you'll get invited to go to like uniform fittings and stuff like that. And then the superintendent sorts through the people.
What do you think weeds out a lot of people? Because I remember my other question was when you said, what was your question? I was like, was why do you think a lot of people don't get that on the first run?
Oh, just because there's a lot of things in people's background. The polygraph kicks a lot of people out, but there's qualifiers in there that some of them are you can't be a law enforcement officer, and then there's some that you can, but just not right now. So it just depends on what your answers are to that. They look a lot at like your finances too. So if you're in a situation where you're going through a divorce and you have they're probably not going to bring you in on this time because it's not a good idea to be going through that amount of training. I
know the military takes those things into consideration with like your clearance.
Yeah.
Like, are you susceptible to being blackmailed or taking bribes and stuff like that?
Yeah, they kind of look at the same thing. So it's, age sometimes comes into it. Not that you have to be, older necessarily to be in law enforcement, but sometimes people just lack the maturity, and it comes out in the background. So there's a lot of different disqualifiers that go through there. So there are a lot of people who will have stories about having to apply 2, 3, 4 times before they get on.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So how long have you been in that career?
Be 9 years in October.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're saying you and your brother flying the helicopter for marijuana eradication?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Indiana rocks. They're still one of the states that there's no form of marijuana that's legal. Okay. So we actually team up with the National Guard. They have a counter drug unit, and they bring their 60s in, and
let's go.
We strap in and hang out the side and go looking for it. And when we spot it, depending on where it's at and stuff like that, and then we go and do what we call knock and talks and say, hey, why are you growing marijuana? You can't do that. And I tell you,
how often do the conversations go exactly like that? Is that like is that your opener?
For me, so 9 years, I've spent all this time training to shoot and fight and all this other stuff, and I've never had to fight anybody. But that's because, sometimes, but that's just because of the way I talk to people.
Yeah, you're so friendly.
Yeah, I try to be friendly and respectful.
You do what you're supposed to do.
Nearly Canadian.
You're friendly,
you just approach the door.
Respectful, and de-escalation. Like that should be your goal, right?
Yeah, most of the time, and this blows people's minds when I talk to them about it, but they're like, well, they just let you come in and take it. Well, no. I mean, I talk to them and they give consent. Like, who would give consent for you to come in their house? It's like, well, it's all about how you treat people. If I'm not treating you like garbage or disrespect, whatever, and we have a conversation. And one thing about law enforcement that's legal for law enforcement to do is we can lie, but we can only lie to a point. So we can't lie when it comes to the application of a law.
Okay.
Because that's illegal.
Yep.
But we can lie. I can say, if I was talking to Lucas and I said, hey, you might as well tell me what happened because JP just told me everything. We can use tactics like that, but that doesn't have anything to do with the application of the actual law. That's one thing I don't do. I tell people straight up, hey, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I'll tell them. So if they ask me, well, what's going to happen if I don't consent, or what's going to happen if, this goes to court or whatever, I'll tell them. I'll just tell them flat out, hey, this is what's going to be.
That's cool.
And I tell them, hey, and it works a lot for me, is it's like, hey, I'm not going to lie to you. Don't lie to me. And a lot of times, people are more forthcoming with stuff like that.
That's rad. I like it.
And very often I approach situations and I'm just a goofball where I'll just...
Do you actually use that line? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Like how,
oh, for sure.
Yeah. What's the response typically when you're like, hey, you're growing marijuana? You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I know. People are, when the state police come knocking on your door, and we don't dress, usually when we're doing marijuana eradication, it's a down and dirty job, just because you're going into houses and they're just filthy. And
you mean to tell me that people that are growing marijuana are not really concerned about the upkeep of their residence?
Not all the time. There's some that will surprise you, but but then growing out into the cornfields and stuff, and some of the scrub ground that it grows in, and it's just a filthy job. So we don't wear our typical Class A's. So when we show up, we're in green, so we look like the SWAT team. So it can be intimidating to them. So when I say something, goofy like that I don't even think they catch the humor. They're just, because they're so nervous.
I mean, you're clearly doing something illegal.
Yeah.
And then guys that look like SWAT operators show up at the door. I mean, like at one point you just got to be like, well, it's been a good ride.
Yeah. That was it. Guess we're just going to have to start planting corn again.
It's funny. We did one time, and this guy, he was super cooperative. He's like, can I just get a sniff of that one more time? And we're like, yeah, sure, buddy. We got the plant. He grabs it up his hand. He's like, oh, I'm going to miss you. And I was like, okay.
It's like a little shop of horrors.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, some of the people that you meet and talk to when you're doing stuff like this.
Don't take Audrey too.
Yeah. So there, I don't want to get off on a war story here.
Oh,
but
please do.
Yeah, I mean, we got time.
We were in a guy's house, and he was very, very upset, not at us, just at the circumstance, and he was being very cooperative. And
good for him.
My buddy Tim looks over, and he finds some mushrooms that he had up in a cabinet in a jar, and he turns around. He's like, "Hey, are these mushrooms?" He's like, "Oh, dang it, I forgot about those." He's freaking out, and Tim just looks over. He's like, "Psychedelic," and then
he's quoting Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, and then the head officer that was doing the investigation, he goes, "Is this in the original dispensary container?" It looked like that at the guy, which makes no difference at all in Indiana because it can't have it no matter what it's in.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, I don't think it is. He's about into tears. He's like, well, that's going to be a problem.
You guys just having fun with it.
Oh, yeah, we just goof. Awesome. We have a good time doing it. So, yeah.
That's cool. Any crazy, incidences over the years where you're like, oh, thank the Lord you worked through that or got out of it, or?
Oh, yeah. There's so many.
Okay.
I can think of one right off the top of my head. I was by myself. So troopers, I got to explain the dynamics of this first. So if you're a trooper and you work the road, we typically are kind of alone. Okay. So we don't have, unless you work in a city where they have dedicated county units or city units that can be your backup. A lot of times, the staff at the different districts for troopers we're extremely understaffed. So a lot of times you're alone. Okay. So when you respond to a call, it's you. So it's like figure it out. Okay. I got called to a man holding a woman hostage on the side of a road in a car. So they're like, we don't have anybody. Go get it, Tiger. So I was like, well, here we go. So I show up and the woman that was being held hostage had escaped, luckily, before I got there. But the man was still in his car with the gun. So I'm talking to her, and he just decides to pop out, and I'm out. I don't know what's going on, so I'm thinking I got to shoot this guy. And being there by myself, I was like, I'm trying to go through everything, but we're on a highway, so there's whenever I approach a car on a traffic stop, I'm always looking around. Okay, where am I going to run if something happens? Where's cover? Where's just concealment? How many people are in here? What are they doing? There's so many things that run through your head. But he just got out of that vehicle so fast, it was just a dynamic situation. And luckily, he turned and faced me, and I could see that his hands were empty at the moment. So I didn't shoot him, but the slack was out. It was a hairy situation, and then he saw that, and I could tell by looking at him. JP, you probably know this from being in combat. You know, when you look at people, and you can kind of tell when they're working through what they're gonna do.
Yep.
And I could tell by looking at his face and his eyes the moment that he decided that he wasn't going to dive back in for that gun. So luckily he didn't do that, and I was able to get him to come to me and then proned him out and got him in handcuffs. But I was completely by myself, so it was going to be a storm. So,
which is crazy for our listeners that don't understand how weapons work. When Aaron's talking about the slack out, we call that, like, as you're pulling the trigger, you're getting the slack out of the trigger, and then you start, as you're pulling, there's tension, right?
Yeah.
And there's a few pounds, depending on the gun and the trigger and the setup and everything. I mean, you probably had half a pound left.
maybe.
Oh, that's scary, man.
Yeah, because when I'm punched out, I'm staring at my front sight, and I'm just trying to tell myself, hey, smooth press, where's your sight? But I can see in my peripherals my hammer coming back because it's a double single action gun, so I could see it, and it didn't have much to go. Yeah.
What gun do you carry?
It's a SIG 227. They don't make them anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
is the same as the 226, 11.5 pounds on that first pull?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're pulling that as you're presenting, it actually makes it much easier to do that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
How much stress-induced training do you guys do as state troopers?
not enough.
Okay. Well, I think that's always the answer. But I mean, clearly it was enough that you were able to think through this process and recognize. So what you just explained is not common for most law enforcement.
Yeah.
It's not common to be even able to, like, recognize, like, his hands, to watch his facial expressions, to watch his posture changing, while you're also front sight focused. You're watching your hammer go back. Most people, they don't even hear their gun go off the first shootout they get in.
Mm-hmm.
How much were you training jiu-jitsu at this point in your life?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep,
So
that helps.
Okay, awesome. Yes, this is why everybody should train. If you're in law enforcement and you're not training, we want to help you. And there's a lot of things and organizations that I'm sure we'll talk about that can help you. But if you're in law enforcement, you should be training jiu-jitsu just for, like, what we just talked about, because the stress-induced training that jiu-jitsu provides allows you to detach, think, breathe, and make good decisions.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Now let's talk about the law enforcement training. I think the answer is always going to be not enough. I mean, in Tasking and Bruiser, we trained a ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
And I think you know the story, and I'm not going to share it right now, but there's a moment when I was dragging a Marine out of the street one time, and I remember, as I'm dragging him, trying to get him back to the courtyard, bullets are impacting all around us. I remember thinking, I wish I had trained harder.
Yeah.
And we trained really hard.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's ever going to be like, we're good. We're good with our training. But at, like, what level of training had your agency provided you, or you sought on your own to elevate yourself in combo with jiu-jitsu to allow you to actually make a good decision?
So,
because you could have smoked that dude.
Yeah, 100%. And that's not the only one that I've had pretty close to that. I've never fought anybody, but I've almost killed quite a few people.
Okay.
But our agency actually does, it's not enough. It's simply not enough. But we do a very good job, I think, of providing our troopers with more training hours than what's required. Because in Indiana, it's only 24 hours.
A year?
24 hours, which is nothing. And some people, there for a while were getting away with, just watching a YouTube video and marking that down as training for whatever discipline that they were under, which is crazy. But they've kind of put an end to that now. But
good.
That was happening, and yeah, it's crazy. But our agency does a pretty good job of, getting people more training than what we're allotted, and we do some good training. There's some studs on our department that have done some stuff, and they know what they're talking about, and so a lot of those guys, luckily, they want to be part of the training department and push that knowledge out. So we do that. But then on top of that, I seek training on my own as well, shooting, obviously jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But anytime something like that comes up, I'll push it out to the department. Hey, can I go to this? And a lot of times they'll let me go.
That's awesome.
And so I'll go. Yeah. I always tell my rookies, the new guys, because I'm a field training officer as well. So when they come out, I tell them, in other jobs you can go 9 to 5 and you can make your widgets and you can go home and you can do it subpar and get away with it for the most part. I said, but lack of professionalism in law enforcement you cannot do that. Professionalism in law enforcement is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
You have to pursue professionalism in all things. So not just driving, fighting, and shooting, but also case law, knowing what you can and can't do, the Constitution, knowing all these things. And you're just not going to get enough. You're not going to get as much as you need through the department. And so you've got to spend your own personal hours perfecting that.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
Because, your life or your partner's life is going to depend upon it.
100%.
Or like this guy's life. Could you have justified it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But did you need to take his life?
No.
See, that's the answer.
Yeah.
And it's because of good training that you didn't have to shut off birthdays for him.
Yeah. And I tell people that all the time, rookies that come in, I said, just because it's justifiable doesn't mean it's necessary.
Amen, man.
Yeah.
Very similar to what Seth, Leif, and Jocko would give us guidance as well.
Yeah.
Because the rules of engagement in Ramadi were there for a reason, but it didn't mean free range.
Yeah.
We had to be professional. We're working for the Army and the Marine Corps. They are professional units. And so I love that you are in a position where you can pass on that wisdom to these rookies.
Yeah. And then the caveat to that is when you don't train, you feel that what should normally be unnecessary becomes necessary because you don't know what to do. So it's like you've got to put yourself through that training and through that time and be thinking about it, all the time. So when the situation presents itself, you can see clearly what you need to do.
That's good.
And you don't do things you're not supposed to.
Dude, I love it. I hope all of our listeners captured that and applied it to all of their aspects, especially all of our listeners that are in the military and law enforcement. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. And I really hope you took to heart what Aaron just said. Have you read Extreme Ownership?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I knew that answer, but I wanted to ask just in case. How much have those principles helped you in law enforcement and then in your marriage as a father and then in jiu-jitsu?
Oh, man.
We'll just start with law enforcement.
Well, just the principle of it's not anybody else's fault, but it's my fault, and I'm responsible for what I do. So it's just, taking that and applying it to law enforcement. That if something bad happens on a case that I'm working, I decide to cut a corner here, or am a little lazy over there, or I didn't train the way I should have for that situation, all that falls back on me. Even if, let's go back to that situation with that guy. Was I justified in doing what I did or could have done? Yeah. But was it necessary? No. And if I would have taken that person's life, it would have gone away with me of I could have done something different and not have to do that.
That's good.
And so even though he was doing what he was doing, for sure, it still fell on my shoulders to decide what happened in that moment.
That's what I love about extreme ownership. This isn't a new principle that we haven't heard of before.
Right.
If you read the Bible, it's all throughout the Bible. Do the right things for the right reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Take responsibility. And even when things happen in life, which I know in your world, you come across just crazy stuff. There are going to be things that happen in life that you physically had zero control.
Right.
And the thing that people have a hard time of finding ownership in is how am I supposed to take ownership of this? I had zero to do with this. I couldn't control it. Okay. What do you take ownership over now? Mm-hmm. What problems can you solve? What responsibility can you take to make the situation better? There's a lot of law enforcement agencies out there that complain because lack of funding, lack of training, lack of support, lack of leadership, all those things. And they're valid. But
it's just an excuse.
Yes, it's an excuse. You can take ownership over the things that affect your life. Okay, you're not getting enough training. Seek the training on your own. You don't have the budget. Get creative. You know, I've helped law enforcement agencies get funds for training by working with local businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you go to the local businesses and, you know, say, hey, you know, would you like a tax donation? You know, it's a donation you can make that is going to help you on your taxes. All of these funds go towards the local police officers training. When you call 911, the men and women that are going to show up, this helps them be better qualified to protect you, your business, your family. People don't do that. And I've worked with some departments and they started doing it. And all of a sudden now they have a legitimate training budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because guess what? As much as the media wants people to think like we don't like law enforcement and everybody hates them, that's not true. That's not true.
Totally not true. Yeah.
There are plenty of good Americans and plenty of businesses that would love to support departments. They just don't know how to, or they're not approached to it. So if you're listening and your agency doesn't have money for training, go start talking to local businesses.
Absolutely.
Build relationships with those local businesses, and you'll be surprised what happens.
Absolutely. I travel around a little bit and do these situational awareness seminars that I do, predator awareness seminars. And one of the things I say to people there, which applies to exactly what you're saying, is, you know, the day the incident happens to you and you get injured or killed or something like that, heaven forbid, that didn't happen that day. That started 12 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, with your eating habits, with your sleeping habits, with your substance abuses, with your mental attitude, with your lack of training, your preparedness, all that happened back then, and this is just the day that it was all decided. So it's something that I always push out to people is like, hey, you've got to start to take control over your own situation, because you can't blame anybody else for it on that day.
That's good. Okay, before we talk about extreme ownership in your marriage and as a parent and a jiu-jitsu, let's talk about this awareness training that you do.
So I'm sure we'll get into it, but
or do you want to wait a little bit later?
Well, kind of caveats off of the
five stones.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So EO in your marriage, how has it benefited you?
Oh man, so both me and my wife have pushed that out, and God bless my wife. She supports me so much on everything I do. I can't even believe it. You know, just hey, you know, I got to pivot and I got to do this because my job is always changing because I'm on a drug task force, so I don't have a shift. It's just, we call it doper time. So it's whenever they're doing what they're doing, that's when we got to be out doing what we're doing. And so, you know, there's nights I'm working till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then, you know, I have to be back out for a day shift the next day because we're serving a warrant or whatever the case may be. So she just rolls with the punches so much. But we learned, you know, with the extreme ownership, but then also, you know, one of the most important things in our marriage is just keeping the lines of communication open. She knows that I can say, you know, whatever I need to say, and she's going to take that away, and she's going to think about it, and she can do the same thing to me. If I'm out of line, she can say something that may or may not, you know, quote unquote, hurt my feelings, and it doesn't change our dynamic that we love each other and that we have each other's best interests at heart. And so there's that line of communication, but what extreme ownership has really changed about that is realizing that the times that I want to say something to my wife that, you know, hey, you did this and we need to, it's like, well, wait a minute. Actually, I did this.
Yeah.
And
if we pull the string far
like,
enough, it always comes back to us.
Dang it.
Especially in marriage.
Yeah. So it's and now she's kind of started to do that too. And more often than not, we're apologizing to each other rather than, you know.
Dude, that's awesome.
So it's like, I'm sorry for doing this. And she's, I'm sorry for doing that. And just like last night, you know, this is a good example. They had class back at Five Stones, and so I called the guy that was teaching for me, and I was checking in with him and see how things went, and we got busy doing stuff down here, and I didn't call my wife before I went to bed. I sent her a text, and I got up the next morning. I was like, hey, I shouldn't have done that. I should have called you. I'm not going to do that anymore. I promise I'll call you. She's like, oh, don't worry about it. You got to do this. God's called you to do so many other things. I'm fine. And I'm just like, no, but really, I was wrong. You know, so it's that back and forth, and it's pretty awesome.
Well, your wife knows your heart. You know your wife's heart, so the intentionality there is not ill towards each other.
Right.
And as you were talking, I just wrote down alignment.
Yeah.
I just feel like, you know, one of the things that extreme ownership brings to marriages is alignment.
100%.
And the more alignment you have, the better your life is going to be.
100%.
I've never met anybody that's like, man, I got too much alignment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's the lack of alignment that causes problems.
Absolutely.
Like any argument you and your wife have ever had, like mine, and like Lucas and his spouse and the rest of the guys that are married, and any of our listeners, I'm willing to bet the arguments were from lack of alignment and or the ego getting involved.
Oh, for sure.
And the more you seek to take ownership, the more you have to subordinate your ego.
Yep.
You have to.
Yep. And it can be a hard thing to do. I tell people all the time, like, hey, it's not that it's easy necessarily to get rid of that monster that's on your back.
No.
But once you do, it's like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like.
That's cool.
And okay.
That's
All right.
awesome. All right. As a parent, pretty similar, I guess, or?
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the things that I do with my kids is, if I've screwed up, and it kind of blows their minds because, they're the ones that are getting corrected if they're, out of line.
Mm-hmm.
But if I make a mistake, I'm like, hey, Dad was wrong about that. I should have done this. And it's just like, oh, I thought you said you couldn't, and it kind of like blows their mind when I do that. I'm like, what? My son came to me, I don't remember when, it's been some time ago, but he's like, well, why'd you tell me that? I'm like, well, because I was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, why'd you tell me that? He just wanted to know why it was that I outed myself, because it's not natural for him to do that. I think it's all humans, our self-preservation kicks in and we want to just like, well, if nobody noticed that, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
And I need to let you know I was wrong.
Yeah. Lack of ownership is in our DNA because of Adam and Eve.
Yeah, 100%. But being able to model that to the kids
Is incredible.
so that they can see that when they get older, and same thing with like their buddies when they come home and tell me stories about something that some kid's doing at school or whatever, and we can talk through those things and they have a solid foundation for what it's supposed to look like. That most of the time when they come and they tell me those things, they've already got the answer and they already know it.
That's cool.
I'm like, Dad, I know what he should have done or what should have happened here.
Well, you're
That's
also
pretty awesome.
showing your kids, which is important for parents to do. You're going to make mistakes, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to work through it. Because if kids are afraid to make mistakes, then they're going to be terrified to come talk to you.
Right. Yeah.
And if like we're at lunch the other day with my parents, and Cora asked some random question. She goes, "Hey, Dad, have you ever?" Like, she asked me if I'd ever done something, and I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "I'm like, one, I'm not going to lie to my daughter."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, I did. It wasn't right. I shouldn't have done it. Here's what I learned from it." And it was funny because my parents were sitting there and they're kind of like, like, what?
Why would you admit that?
Well, they were a little nervous, right?
Yeah.
And my mom and dad knew like where the conversation was going, but it was still like, that's not a common thing, I think, for most people. And when you can, just when you're actively seeking ways to take ownership and tell the truth and just be like, yeah, I made some mistakes.
Oh, for sure.
And I shouldn't have done that. And
Yeah.
here were the consequences to my mistakes. I think it's a great thing that you're doing to teach your kids.
Yeah, one of the examples I use all the time is going back to my high school career and in elementary, where I just didn't care about being there. I tell my kids, like, hey, I get it. You'd rather be outside playing, but take it from me, because I didn't apply myself, and I had to work 3 times as hard when I was an adult to make up for that. Whereas if you just apply yourself now, you work hard, then it pays off in the end. And talking them through that and admitting my own mistake, like, hey, your dad's kind of a knucklehead. Like,
Yeah.
don't do what I did. Here, do it this way, and
Yeah.
and here's why. And I have no problem, telling them why I do what I do and how I went wrong.
That's cool. We've been, our daughters are 13, and they're in this phase of like, hey, I mean, they love being homeschooled, but I think it's that normal phase that most kids are like, why do we have to do school? School's blah, 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 blah. And we've been, working through it with them of, hey, the purpose of school is to teach you how to think.
Yeah.
And how to gain knowledge so that you can apply it. And, I always tell them, I'm like, hey, our goal as parents is to teach you guys how to think, not what to think. And that's why we do homeschool, because it allows them to learn how to think, not what to think. Mm-hmm. And also, explain to our kids, like, hey, knowledge is not power. It's the application of knowledge that allows you to do powerful things.
100%.
So the more you can read and study and do these things and teach yourself things, and if you're eager to learn and grow, you're going to be so much advanced compared to everybody else. And that's what's, going to allow them to start their own businesses or, go work for a company and grow that company and be an asset.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Critical thinking is something that we push hard in our household, is just, not necessarily what to think, but spend time thinking about it and then come to your own conclusion. Then come back and talk to me and see what we have to say.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like what you said too about like talking to them about the work.
Yeah.
Right? So my wife was a psych major, and when we were talking about having kids, I was inundated with all these studies of what we were going to do, how we were going to raise our kids, right? And as a caveat, extreme ownership has backfired on me with my 2-year-old, right? Because we're throwing the ball, and whenever I, made a mistake, I was like, hey, my bad. And now if he misses one, he'll just look at me and point and be like, hey, Dad, you're bad. You're bad. I'm like, okay, fine, jerk. This next one's coming at your head. But the idea that you make the hard work the virtue, right? And that's the thing that you praise. Praising the effort over the intelligence actually has been proven in, I think, obviously in pediatric ages, but also in later adolescence and in college students, that if you praise the effort, if you praise the work over like the intelligence or the talent or whatever, their performance improves better over time when you praise the effort over that. So like encouraging them, hey, you know what, you need to work hard, or if they did something well, instead of saying, oh yeah, you're so smart, or hey, you know what, you worked really hard to get this done, that actually improves performance over time more than, praising a talent or a skill or something of that nature. They show, it was wild, the first study she showed me about this, but they took 2 kids, they took twins, so like almost the 2 identical twins, so kind of across the board average, or they were in step with everything. And the only difference was one of them, they told him, hey, listen, you worked really hard. You put in a great effort in order to make that happen. And then the other kid, they told him, hey, you know what? You're so smart. You get that done. Gave them both the same test like 30 minutes later. The one that was told that they were so smart continued to do worse incrementally each time. And the one that the effort was praised did better and better and better. So yeah, like praising the effort, encouraging the work ethic over, the other stuff has a tremendous amount of just like self-image building that the rest of that stuff doesn't, which is crazy. And I think that's a really important thing that you're doing, and something I would encourage other parents to do, because it's working with our 2 little experiments that we've had. So
yeah,
his children.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I didn't know all of that, but I 100% agree, because that's how I was raised. And as a trainer on the department, I'm a firearms instructor, a defensive tactics instructor, and attack med instructor. And that's, I know. That's I asked for 1 and they gave me 3. So I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
It's because they can trust you with the work. They know that you'll do it.
Yeah. But that's the biggest separation that I see in some of the people, especially the newer folks, is just nobody taught them how to put effort into it. And somebody that just knows how to do effort, they may not have a clue what they're doing, but they perform 100% better almost all the time, because they're just willing to get out there and work at it.
And if you're willing to put in effort, you're going to gain knowledge and experience.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
That's awesome.
I got to tell you a story. This is making me think of.
Please do it.
So you're gonna. This is Dad being, hey boy, come here. Let me tell you something. so we
sit on down, boy.
We were out a couple summers ago, out in the woods, someplace that had a bunch of down trees, cutting trees, and my son wanted to go and help out, and I was like, hey, right on, let's go get it done. So he comes with me, and then he decides he wants to play out in the woods. And I said, well, I tell you what, bud, you help Uncle John move that pile of wood that I just split and load it in the truck, then I'll let you go play for 5 minutes. He's like, well, why do I got to do that? Why can't I just play right now? I was like, well, son, I pulled him over to me. I said, hey, because this is hard work, and if you can accomplish that hard work before you play, then you'll be good. And besides, when you grow up and you know how to do this hard work, you'll be above everybody else, because when something bad happens, they'll be the first to die, and you won't be.
That's amazing.
My brother goes, geez, Aaron, getting a little deep there, aren't you? And when I look over, I said, yeah, but look at William. And he's just back and forth with the wood. And he's like, okay, Dad, I'm done. I was like, all right, go play.
Start now. Yeah. 5 minutes now.
So I was like, he understood that. I always tell people, like, you don't underestimate kids in their age levels and what they can actually understand if you're willing to take the time and explain it to them. Because their intellect is far more than anybody, I think, ever gives them credit for.
I would agree.
Yeah, and so I do. I mean, and if you have a conversation with my son sometimes, it's like, how old are you?
That's so cool.
Because he comes up with questions sometimes. I'm like, oh, geez. I don't know how to answer that one, bud. You're
like, hold on, I got to finish something with Mom. You're on Google.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. How has EO helped with jiu-jitsu and starting a jiu-jitsu school?
Oh, man. I tell you what, just that knowledge of knowing that it's on me. It's all on me and the law enforcement. So so I'll tell you a story of how I actually got started. I was just out of the academy, and I had just gotten my own car. So I was on solo patrol, and there was a guy, he was in a fight with a suspect on the side of the road, a long way away, which is the worst feeling in the world, because you know he's by himself, and you know you're 50 miles away, and you know how long an average fight lasts, and there's no way I'm going to get there in time, but you're giving it all you got, and he's fighting, and then he goes quiet on the radio. We don't hear anything, which is the worst thing ever. We end up showing up, and he had the guy in custody. I think he radioed back, 5-10 minutes later, hey, everybody can slow their run. I'm good. But what had happened is he was actually winning the fight, but they slipped and fell. And when they fell, they rolled down the hill, and the guy got on top of him. Just how they landed.
Yeah.
And he started to gouge his eye out. The suspect did. Luckily, there was a person that was driving by that saw the altercation taking place and jumped out and decided to go down and help.
Thank God.
Yeah, because otherwise, he's actually not a trooper anymore. I don't know exactly what he's doing, but if that wouldn't have happened, he would have lost his eye, for sure, and probably have been killed, because the guy was going to kill him. But when I learned that, it coincided with I was watching a documentary on sheepdog response with Tim Kennedy.
Yeah.
And it was him pacing around. He must have been doing a law enforcement thing, but it was just a documentary. He's pacing around in the mat room, and he says, how many people here had my hands in their face or my fingers in their eyes? And he's like, everybody I rode with better raise your hand. And then he's quiet for a minute, and these words that he said, he's like, you can't see anymore. This isn't LASIK fixable. You'll never see your kids again. You'll never see your wife again. You are permanently blind. And I watched that the same night that incident happened, and I said, okay, this is on me. I've got to do something about this. And so the very next day I started research and found a school and started. But had I not had that mindset that nobody's going to help me, this is all on me. Whether I come home safe to my kids at night, whether I can see my wife again, it matters the work that I put in, the things that I do. And I had to take ownership over that in my own life, because it wasn't up to anybody else. It was up to me. And so having read that and been through that and having that knowledge in the background just pushed me all the more to do that. Yeah.
That story stressed me out as I was listening, because I'm doing basic math. I'm like, okay, 50 miles away, there's no way that you're averaging 150 miles an hour, right? Your car can get up there, but you're not averaging it.
No.
So let's say you average 100 miles an hour. It's 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know of many people that can fight for 30 minutes.
No, there's no chance. And I knew that. The worst feeling, when he was talking and saying he was in a fight, as long as you can still hear him on the radio, that gives me a little bit of peace. Mm-hmm. But when they go quiet and they're status checking him and there's no response, because you just don't know what's going on, and you're trying to get there, but you can only do what you can do.
Dude, and how about that bystander, like seeing what was going on and then jumping in?
Because, absolute guardian angel.
Yeah. Well, and how many people rolled by and did nothing? The likelihood that they're the only one that saw that situation and we're the ones that jumped in, versus the fact that there were 50, 60 people that drove by and didn't do a thing about it before somebody finally did. That's That's one of the reasons that I think this type of stuff, particularly for first responders, with the lack of, we talked about it before, the lack of emphasis that's put on, this type of training for them is so massive, because when law enforcement show up to a situation, they're typically showing up to the worst moment in somebody's life.
Yeah, 100%.
But if you do 5 calls a day, for those 5 people, it's the worst moment in their life. But you've got to do the same 5 calls the next day. Mm-hmm. And on it goes. And so it's not just like the weight of that, but it's the fact that you can't predict what's going to happen in a situation where every person is incredibly volatile. And whether it's a single individual or a group of individuals, like that's what you guys are going into. And not being prepared, to defend yourself. And don't get me wrong, like I love sport jiu-jitsu. I think sport jiu-jitsu is really cool, like De La Hiva guard and all these other things that you can get in and out of. But there is something so just wonderful about the figuring out how to get your base, and like Tim Kennedy was saying, protecting your face from getting punched, right? If somebody gets you in one of those fancy X guards or something like that we do in jiu-jitsu competitions, right? They're not going to punch you in the face because the referee's not going to let them.
Yeah.
But if you get into that in the street, then you're going to get pummeled. But the jiu-jitsu for self-defense, that is just about like, hey, protecting yourself, getting into an advantageous position, getting all of those things going. If we gave our law enforcement 6 months of just good training like that, it would change the outcomes and the confidence that they had in going into
the studies. The studies have been done. The studies are out there. Marietta, Georgia is one of them. There's a law enforcement agency, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head, down in Florida. They all do that, and they've actually put the studies in, and use of forces have dropped like drastic numbers. I'm talking like 50, 60%.
Yeah.
Injuries on the job, taser usages have gone just plummeted, just because of that knowledge. I mean, the studies are out there, and why more people are not catching on to that and applying it, I don't know.
It's lack of education and ego.
Yeah.
And it's the lack of effort that people want to put in there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, so you start training. It's obviously shaped who you are as a man, and
Sure.
as a trooper, as a husband, as a father, and just as a human. Jiu-jitsu tends to make people better.
Oh, yeah.
I can't say all the time, because there are some dirtbags that train jiu-jitsu. If you're a good person, it's going to make you a better person. I believe that. And if you're not a good person, it can make you a good person, because it's a humbling sport. And as long as you're humble, coachable, and teachable, jiu-jitsu is only going to benefit your life.
Oh, 100%.
And if you're not, you will be if you come back for class number 2.
Yes, 100%.
The mats of justice.
Yeah. Let's talk about immersion camp real quick, about how we met, the crew that you guys bring out there. I just love, like, your guys' like 5 guys in a truck?
5 guys in a truck.
Let's talk about that. I love this. It's so amazing.
So the first year that I decided to come out, there was only me and one other trooper that came, and I'd made it up in my mind, hey, I'm going, whether you're going or not. And he's like, no, I'm going. So we came out, and that was the first year that it was Tyler and I.
Yes.
And then we met you, and
He's such a good human.
yeah, he is a goof, but he's kind of a hard role too.
Yes.
240 and ex-Marine, just freaking corn-fed, stout dude that just doesn't give a crap.
I need to connect him and Aiden, because Aiden's in the process of joining the Marine Corps.
Oh, right on.
This is public knowledge now. Everybody's going to know that listens to the podcast. But yeah, he's in the process of it. So
good.
I'm glad that you reminded me about that.
Well
So
done, Joe Reyna.
I know Joe Reyna's doing his job recruiting.
Yeah.
But okay, so you and Tyler come out.
Yeah. So we come out, and
What year is that? That was 2021, right after COVID, right?
Yeah, would have had to been. Yep.
Yep.
And
That was a good year at camp.
it was. That was great. I was just, the thing that I took away from that, and everybody always asked me, like, when you went to immersion camp, what did you take away? They're looking for some sort of technique or whatever, and they're obviously there's outstanding technique. The people that you meet are wonderful. Getting to talk with Pete and going through the factory, and him just being so transparent on what they're building and how they're building it, and right down to, like, there's people asking him questions when we went through it, and I'm like, bro, that's out of line. But Pete just took it and and didn't hold anything back, told them, and I was just like, there's something different about this crew. And that was actually when I met Formiga too. And when I came back, everybody's always asking me, what'd you get? And I said, the only way I can think to describe it to you, it's like before my jiu-jitsu, it was like I was in the Wizard of Oz and the curtain was closed. And when I went to Maine, someone opened the curtain and I saw what jiu-jitsu really was supposed to be and what hard work, determination can actually build through that. It's just a different group of people. I don't know how else to explain that other than there was no condemnation. There was no ego. There was any of those black belts that were there were just like, you go and ask them a question. No issues whatsoever. Hey, yeah, come over here. Let me show you. And that's how Formiga was. And I was like, okay. It was like I was seeing for the first time in my life up to that point, which I was a 2-stripe blue belt, I think, when I went to the first camp.
I think you went 1 year before you met Formiga because he wasn't there in 21.
So it had to have been 22 then.
Yeah, okay, 2020.
Because he was there.
That was your first year?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, so the crew that you guys have has grown pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I tend to latch on to people.
Grow the group. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm always getting accused of bringing home strays.
It's networking. That's what we call that.
Yeah.
I don't know a stranger, so like,
that's a good quality.
If I can help you, come on, let me help you.
That's a great quality.
So so that's what I was telling people. I was like, everybody's asking me. I was like, look, if you want to know, you just got to go. Come on, let's go. Mm-hmm. And then the next year, that was when the 5 guys in the truck went on there, and oh my gosh, that was something else driving across the U.S. to Maine, and just all these beefy dudes, and Connor in there. We just get started, and he's like, guys, I got a pee, so we got to pull over on the side of the highway, and he just runs into the woods and disappears for a minute, comes back, and it was buck wild when we went down.
So
there.
Who was all in that truck?
So I think that was me and Tyler, and was it Connor? I think. Did you go? Yeah, Connor, Jim Eastwood.
Yeah.
And then I think my brother John came.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when did Case go with you guys?
So I met him the first year.
Okay.
And we became kindred spirits
Yes.
instantly. And so it wasn't the second year. He met us out there. And then the third year that we went, we're like, Case, fly to Indiana. You're riding with us, buddy. So we kept the 5 guys in the truck alive because we had dropped Connor. So we threw Case in his spot and did the whole thing all over again.
Dude, that's awesome. And he came from Anchorage, Alaska.
He did, yeah. He flew into Indianapolis. I went and picked him up, and he stayed at my house for a night. Then we all drove out, and he stayed at my house on the back end one night too.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so immersion camp, it's been incredible. I know for a lot of people that go, it's like, hey, like me, like block it off on the calendar.
Yeah.
It's going to happen if possible. And then where did the idea of you starting your own jiu-jitsu academy and the other things that you're doing with the predator awareness, like how did that come about?
So Stacy and I, that's my wife, had always wanted to do like our own business of some sort. And it started with the idea of Warrior Mind Concepts, which is going to be basically the predator awareness, teaching that to civilians, and then shooting, the shooting aspect of things, tactical medicine and stuff like that, and just bring it, because that's not something that's really, there's not a very big, I don't think there's anybody actually in our area that really teaches that. There's people that teach it, but they travel to do it.
Yeah.
So it's something I wanted to bring to the area. And after that first year and then going forward, I was just like, there is something here that is not being translated back to our area as far as jiu-jitsu goes. And I was like, I can do this. I can bring this, what it's supposed to be, and I can bring it back. And I can show people, hey, look, this is what I want everybody to experience. And it just kind of branched out from there, where it was just like, you know what, there's more to this Warrior Mind concepts thing than what I originally had thought. And it just, the more I had thought about it, the more it was almost kind of like supernaturally put into my mind and in my heart, and to the point where my wife and I, we've done quite a few renovations on our house and stuff, but she can't. I'll be like, hey, this is what this is going to look like. And she's like, I can't picture it. I can't see it. I'm like, okay, you're just going to have to trust me. And a lot of our fights would be over that. Like, hey, this is how this is going to be. She's like, I can't. No. And I'm like, trust me. And luckily she does, and I'll do it. She's like, oh, okay. And she can see it. But when it came to how we were going to build the building at our house for this business, God gave her and I the exact, to the color, to the position, to what the inside was going to look like, to the T, the exact same picture of this building. I said, okay, there's more to this. I need to lean into this.
Okay. So in the Bible, it tells us to hold every thought captive.
Yeah.
And God gave you this vision, this thought, this idea. What did you do to filter through and say, okay, this is something I should take action on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It was hard because it meant leaving the academy that I was at the time. And there's other issues going on there too, but it meant leaving that. It meant, stepping out in faith, because the biggest thing is like, well, how are we ever going to afford to do anything like this, build this building? But we both knew, like, hey, this is what God is telling us to do. We need to be faithful to that. And we're like, okay, but how are we going to do that? So it was really difficult to follow along with what they were telling us, or what we felt like we were supposed to do, just because it meant stepping way outside of our comfort zone, sacrificing a lot of things, and then moving forward with Formiga, talking with him, and trying to get that idea out. And is this even worth doing? Is this something that you think? And of course he was like more than accommodating.
Yeah, I remember when you and I first talked about that. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And then I went and talked to Formiga, and he was just blown away.
Yeah. And actually, the conversation that you and I had about that day on the phone just kind of helped solidify what I already knew we were supposed to do. And in fact, I think your exact words were, "You already know what you're supposed to do."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you got me.
Dang it. But it doesn't remove that fear.
No,
that
not
is going to creep in, that doubt that's going to creep in.
Yeah.
What did you and your wife Stacy do to overcome that? Because I think there's a lot of people that have great ideas that are placed in our thoughts, on our hearts from the Lord, that we should run with. But I mean, how many, actually that's not even a good question to ask, because there's no way to answer that. I was going to say, how many great ideas do you think we all waste by not taking action?
Oh.
I think the better question is, what did you do to overcome that fear and or just concerns about what to do next?
Well, I'll tell you, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this so I can move forward with it, is what I think it boils down to. And anybody out there that's got an idea, at some point you have to decide, do you believe in the God of the universe or not? And if you do, and you believe that what he says is true, and that what is going to happen, as it describes it in Revelations and all that, it's going to happen, and that the earth that we live on today is not where we are ever meant to be. We're just here for a time. But this is not how it was originally designed. And you believe that God, that same God that did all that, is telling you to do something, what do you have to worry about? If it's God's will, it's God's bill. And at some point you have to decide, is my faith strong enough to believe, to move forward and trust that same God or not? And that's a reckoning moment. It was a reckoning moment for me, and it was a reckoning moment for Stacy, and ultimately we decided, yes, it is. And so there was no choice after that. It was just, we believe, and because we believe, we must do.
Yeah. It was part of the process also making small iterative steps.
Yeah.
So you're not overcommitting, you're not making,
For sure, we're planning, we're trying to be, good stewards of how we're doing it. We're not just being what we considered irresponsible, but at the same time, you have to make the choice that if you believe this is what's going on, you've got to pull the trigger and you've got to start moving forward. It doesn't have to be, huge drastic things that are going to, bankrupt you and, ruin the life of your kids and all that other stuff.
That's smart.
but you have to start making the steps in the direction. And when you do that, and so far as we've done that, just nothing but open door after open door after open door.
I mean, there's going to be sacrifices
that
you're going to have to make. A lot of it is going to probably be time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of time that is
and
eaten
sleep.
up. Time and sleep, yeah. I love hearing that, Aaron. I'm very thankful that you're here training this week with with your crew and training at Double Five, because there's a lot of people that needed to hear what you just said. And I know so, because Lucas and I, we get a lot of really cool messages from our listeners, and what you just said was just a lot of really good biblical wisdom, and it's solid advice. You have to take action.
Yeah.
You actually have to go out there. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the work every single day. This isn't just like a, hey, we'll do something. Okay, like you've been putting in the work every single day, and you've been obedient. And it doesn't mean that's going to be easy.
No.
The Bible never says things are going to be easy.
No. The opposite, actually.
Yes. That's cool. So where are we at right now? Like, how can somebody, get more information about your courses that you teach, and or being able to come train at your gym if they're in the area?
Yeah, so right now, we just went through a bunch of big meetings and stuff with the county for the zoning and stuff like that. We're hoping to have the new building built and completed by the end of the summer. So right now we have a smaller space, but it's still working out. We have my Instagram, which is at 5 Stones Jiu-Jitsu there. You can reach out to me there, DM me, and I'm maybe foolishly, but I'll talk to just about anybody about anything. So I'll tell everybody here. I mean, you can DM me. I will respond to you. Don't be surprised if I ask for your phone number, because I like to talk to people. Either on the phone or face to face. I just think it's easier.
Yeah, that's a good rule, especially if you're talking through. Yeah, just stuff, and especially business. So on Instagram, it's at 5, as in the number 5, and then Stones JIU _JITSU. But I want to learn more about those courses. I mean, the TACMed, the predator awareness. Like, talk to us about the predator awareness courses, and how can somebody, as they should, have you come teach those courses?
Yes. Same way. The best way to reach out to me is on 5 Stones right now. We're working on, we're going to get a website up and stuff, and it'll have the Warrior Mind Concept link, and we'll have that information on there where you can get a hold of us that way, and we can schedule something to come out. But if you get a hold of me on the 5 Stones, I will definitely be in touch with you, and we'll figure something out, and I'll travel around wherever I need to do that. And so the predator awareness is basically, just like situational awareness, stuff that a lot of people just don't realize is going on around them, how to make them aware of it, give them some tips and stuff on how to avoid it, and just, I don't want to get people paranoid where they're just like freaking out, they're trying to watch over their shoulder, but give them the tools that they need to make good decisions, so they don't, because the best way to avoid being in a crisis situation is just to make the right steps beforehand, so that you don't put yourself in that situation. So that's a lot of what the predator awareness is. And then from there, we have shooting classes. So one of the ones that I recently did was like a concealed carry class, where it was less mechanics of shooting itself and more mechanics with introducing a gun or having a gun during a fight, and seeing how that mashes out. And that was we did it 4 Saturdays, because it was kind of a long course, and people love that. Because I let them bring their own gear in, your own concealed carry kit, how you're going to do it. Obviously, safety is paramount, so I let you use your own weapon, but everything's flagged. There's no ammunition allowed in the building. There's checks and double checks if you ever step off the mats and come back on. So it's extremely safe, but it's also eye-opening for a lot of people to figure out, like, how I've been carrying this weapon is
not ideal.
Not ideal, especially for weapon retention. People learn real quick, like, I can't do anything. If I'm carrying in this position with this holster, I can't retain my gun at all. Or introducing a gun too soon in a fight, and then it becomes a fight over the gun, and usually whoever's on top is going to end up with it. Yeah. It's things like that we teach, but we also do shooting courses, and then the tactical medicine. We haven't kicked that off yet, but that's something that's going to come in. It's not going to be anything crazy. It might be crazy to civilians. To me, it's not crazy, but just something beyond, applying a Band-Aid to something. We're talking tourniquets and things like that, wound packing. And
I think that's brilliant, and I think that should be a top priority for everybody, whether you carry or not, because I have a buddy who's a Green Beret. He's helped out on some of our FTXs, and he teaches like full day and 2-day 2 full days of the tactical medical stuff. Because, if you go off statistics, you're more likely to be in an accident or roll up on an accident than you are to ever actually present your weapon.
That's it. Most of the tourniquets that we apply as a state police in Indiana has been through accidents where we're coming up and people have lost limbs or they're bleeding or they're pinned in. We've saved a lot of lives, and that's mostly how it's applied. So if you're thinking, I'm never going to find myself in a gunfight. Well, maybe not. I hope not.
Yeah, I hope
but,
not.
But in emergency situations like that, and it doesn't have to just apply to crashes and things like that. You can. We just had a tornado that rolled through a town right near where I live, and picked up houses and trapped people in basements and stuff like that. So, it's very easy to get an injury there where your number one concern in that moment is you're going to be your massive hemorrhage. And if you know how to stop that bleeding, you very well could save somebody's life or at least prolong it until you can get medical help that can actually help.
Yeah, so one of my buddies, Flynn Cochran, who worked at Echelon Front with us for a while, his wife is our chief operations officer, and he was in the SEAL teams as well, officer in the SEAL teams, and they were moving, and when they were moving, he was carrying a big mirror out to the truck, and it just hit the tailgate barely, shattered, and a big chunk slid through. He was right-handed, slid through his right wrist. He almost lost his arm, but because he had that medical training, and he was able to be calm, and he was like applying pressure, and he told his wife, like, take my belt off, apply a tourniquet, and then they were able to get a tourniquet on it. It's the only reason why he's alive.
Oh, for sure.
It's the only reason. I mean, it was like, I think over a year before he could actually like type and write. That's how bad it was. And it was because he had that training.
Yeah.
And his wife was, calm is contagious, and so is chaos.
Yeah.
And because he was calm, because of his training, he was able to keep his arm and keep his life.
Yeah.
Because had he been freaking out and not knowing what to do, he would have bled out and died.
Yeah.
And so this type of training is, and he's moving a mirror into the back of his pickup truck.
Yeah. And it's stuff that people
I don't pick up mirrors now, ever. I'm like, we'll just leave it here, or nope.
It's stuff. It's information that a lot of people don't think about. Like what happens if your vehicle, you slide off the road, especially in Indiana when the roads get slick, from the snow and stuff. What happens if you slide off in a body of water? I mean, what do you do then? Just thinking about stuff like that, like knowing that your car, you have anywhere between like a minute and a half and 2 minutes before that thing's going to fully submerge, unless you crack a window or something and allow water in. Knowing that you have those options where you can, take care of yourself first, unbuckle yourself. If you got a child, worry about that, and then, so on and so forth. And just having that information that even, the studies are done where if the batteries and stuff submerge, the power still works in the car most of the time. So, just having that knowledge and having a plan and knowing what to do is going to save people. And that's something that we want to push out through Warrior Mind Concepts.
That's huge. Have you guys tested a Tesla or an electric vehicle going into a body of water?
We have not tried that yet. No.
I wonder how that would work out.
I don't know that I would want to be in that. I'll watch it happen, but I don't think I want to be part of it.
If we get our partnership with Slate, those new EV trucks that they're putting out, the all-American-made truck that's supposed to be released next year, maybe we'll see if they'll let us submerge one for research purposes.
Cool. We'll find somebody to participate in that one.
Yeah, it'll be great. We'll put a tank on you. You'll be fine.
Josh Strasberger, well.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
without hesitation, he's like, I'll do it. He's the most be about it guy ever.
He's just psychotic.
In the best way possible.
Uncle Josh, I'll watch it, but I'm not going to be a part of it.
Oh,
you just time him.
I'll be in. I'll be in there with the tank with some air.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just hang out.
Dude, my palms are sweaty. All right, what else you got?
That's basically what we're going to be doing. In the new building, we'll have classrooms and stuff that'll be designed for people to come up in a comfortable classroom. So if, any of the tech stuff that we need to do up there, we can do. We can do some of the training up there. So it's going to provide a super safe environment for them. And then also we have an existing building now that we're going to be adding on to, and that's going to be a full-time fitness center. So with our jiu-jitsu gym, we're going to do something a little bit different than some people do, is we're going to have a key card access so that you can get into the building when it's convenient for you and work out. And you also have access to the mats if you're like a jiu-jitsu practitioner, because, coming from law enforcement, I understand as good as anybody else that sometimes when class times are set here, and here, you just can't make it to them.
Yeah.
And so we if that's the obstacle that especially law enforcement has for not getting on the mats, I'm going to take that away.
Dude, that's beautiful. I know when Josh first started training jiu-jitsu, there was a group of guys at the gym, Memphis Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, back in Memphis, Tennessee. I used to train there. That's how Josh and I met when I was training and fighting MMA. He was doing jiu-jitsu. Well, there was a group of guys that, because of their shift work, they could not make it to any of the regular classes. Like, one guy could occasionally, and I might be mixing up the story, and I apologize, but from what I remember, one guy could occasionally like get to the classes, and whatever he learned, he would bring it to those guys, and they had mats in an apartment, and that's how they would train.
Yeah.
It's you can make excuses or you can make things happen. You can't do both. And so now you're taking away the excuse of, well, I can't get to class on a regular time. Well, cool. Go drill on your own. 100%. Or if you can have one person there with you, and as long as you're training smart, like that's beautiful.
Yep. You can still get into the building. You can access the fitness center. You can access the mats. We're going to put a kitchenette in there. So if you can only make it on your lunch break or whatever, you can go up there and warm up your food and eat it. And we're going to try to provide as much as we can to eliminate those excuses, but also to provide for our students because, more than anything, we care about the people that are going to be training with us. And so we want to provide them with the best experience they can get.
That's awesome.
To be able to do what they got to do. So.
I know, especially with Connor having a little piece in just your guys' training. And we know the Jocko Fuel supplements are going to be there.
They're already there, bro.
Let's go.
As they should be.
I'm already a distributor, and we've been selling already. So
yes, you're okay. So that was the next thing I wanted to talk.
The real question is, have you got those little calico beef sticks yet?
Not yet.
We need to. Yeah. Okay.
We'll talk.
Yes.
Make that happen.
Might know somebody.
Yeah.
What's your regiment for supplements and exercise and just health?
Yeah. So I think I went through a similar journey as you because of you actually pointing that out to me with TRT. So. That's one thing that I'm on, and I'm not ashamed to talk about it. I'll talk about it with anybody.
Same.
I tell all the dudes out there, because I know for some reason or whatever it's taboo out there, just go get tested. And if you don't know, even if you don't do anything with it after that, at least you know.
Yeah.
The knowledge is there. But I was in the toilet. I was like 133. So I had enough to like keep my organs running, my brain pumping, but that was about it.
I was 81.
Oh God!
Which we're not. This is not like a bragging. Like, oh, I was lower than you. Like, it doesn't matter.
It's
81,
horrible.
130. It's horrible. It's a horrible quality of life. And guys like us that have just the lives that we've lived, your testosterone is going to most likely be affected by it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was super ignorant and egotistical about it because I thought it wasn't an issue because I had a high drive with my wife, and we'll keep it friendly like that because of kids listening. So I was like, oh, if this is good over here, like everything's good. I told my buddy that. I'm like, bro, I'm good. He goes, congratulations. That's like one of the things. And so he starts listing off all the, I was like, oh, yep. I mean, like irritability. People think if you're going to be on testosterone, you're going to be like super aggressive. And we're talking about testosterone replacement therapy, not running cycles to be a bodybuilder and abusing it. There's a difference there.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
My doctor's not going to give me Tren.
If your doctor prescribes you Tren, they should be arrested.
Well, I'm rapidly losing interest in this. I just need to figure out how to get Tren.
So, for all of our listeners, Lucas is joking right now. Yeah, we actually might, for the first time, edit something out. Okay, so being on testosterone,
I'm on testosterone,
improves your mood, your sleep, recovery.
For me,
it's the way you should be feeling.
I'm not sore anymore when I wake up and I just feel like I got hit by a truck. And I'll tell you, even after our conversation that we had at camp that one time, I still was, dragging my feet on it as I do. But what really opened my eyes to the cognitive part of that was I was in a pursuit with a guy that was pretty serious bad guy, and we ended up catching him and all that stuff. And then afterwards I pulled up Google Map on my phone, and I was trying to show my brother John the route that I was pursuing on because he got confused and didn't know where I was at. John, you should know where you're at all the time as a trooper boy. What's wrong with you? Anyway, he didn't know where I was at, and
I can visualize his face listening to this right now. Or watching on YouTube, hopefully.
Oh, I got another good one for you there. But so when I pulled it up, I was looking at my phone, and I zoomed in to the road that it started on. And as soon as I did that, I don't know how to explain it, but I was looking at my phone, and all of a sudden I couldn't read it. Like my brain was not processing what I was looking at. I literally I was like, where's this road at? And then John pointed at it, and when his finger came into view and pointed at it, it cleared up and I could see it. And then it was brought to my attention that during the pursuit, I was calling, when I would say, we're westbound on Union or whatever, I would say eastbound. And then I would realize I said that, and I would say check westbound. And I did that the entire pursuit, but I didn't realize I was doing that. And then at the beginning of the pursuit, John and I were actually on a conference call because we're searching for this dude together. And when I found him, it was just sheer happenstance. He pulled out of a parking lot right in front of me. So I was like, no, that doesn't get any easier than that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no kidding. And I guess what I kept telling John was, John, I got him. John, I got him. And John's like, where are you? And I was like, I got him. He's here. And he's like, where are you? And I was like, I got him. And I don't remember any of that. I have no recollection of any of that. And I was perfectly calm. Like, I wasn't worried about it. I knew the guy was going to run. I knew who he was. He's not necessarily a violent guy. He just flees all the time. So I wasn't.
He's got good cardio.
Yeah,
he don't want to wrestle, but he's got good cardio.
yeah, he can drive, let me tell you. But anyway, so I wasn't amped up or anything. My brain was not keeping up with what was going on. And I was like, okay.
That's scary.
Yeah, for sure. It scared me. And I said, okay, I got to do something about this. And so I went and saw the doc, and, she's awesome. Got me prescribed, and since then it's just been like, okay, rock on.
Yeah. And for those that are listening, like, if you also, and I know you do this because we talked about this, but you also have to take ownership over your health. And just because somebody prescribes you something doesn't mean you just take it blindly. Like, you need to know your body. You need to be educated on your blood work and what looks good and what looks bad. And, some people need anti-estrogen blockers. Some people don't. Some people need to donate blood. Some people don't. Like because I'm on TRT, need to be donating blood regularly. Because if not, it gets thick. I'm at risk for, strokes and all these other things. And that's on me, 100%. I haven't had a doctor go, you need to go donate blood. I know that because I did the research. Right. I educated myself. I know what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And now my wife will be at the point where she's like, you probably need to go donate blood, right? And I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Yep, you were right.
Yep, that's it. I mean, you just have to realize what's going on, and at some point you can't bury your head in the sand over it anymore. You have to just realize that it's an issue, and you got to be responsible about it.
Yeah.
So, and then beyond that, I take a iodine supplement because I was really low on that, and then my blood work's good to go after that. So
that's awesome.
I just take a little bit of vitamin D and Superkrill. The Jocko vitamin D and Superkrill, and that's pretty much my regimen.
Awesome. Have you been taking the creatine?
Good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I do. So every morning I get up. Usually I have a bottle of water. It's the first thing I do is I dump. I got the packets, which are, dude, those are awesome.
So convenient.
Yeah, because they don't clump up or anything else like that. You can pull them out, take them. I dump one of those in, shake it up. I drink my bottle of water, so I get my creatine in every day.
I started taking it in the morning and in the evening as well.
Yeah.
And if I'm super tired and fatigued, I'll take 15 to 20 grams of it. So 3 to 4 times the recommended amount. And the mental clarity is unreal. Which also allows me to, I love the goes and I love coffee. I love, but I've found myself since I've increased my creatine, I don't consume as much caffeine, which is good for my longevity.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely take it before I go to bed because it helps with my sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then before I go to bed, I have magnesium gummies that I take, and those are, dude, I go to sleep now, and with the testosterone in those, like, I stay asleep. I wake up, I'm feeling good.
That's good. It's about longevity. That's important.
I'm the type of guy where I try to take as small amount of supplements as I can. I want my body to do what it's naturally supposed to do, but you also have to be humble enough to realize that sometimes it's no fault of our own. There's a lot of different things in the environment that causes these things with low testosterone, but no amount of ego is going to change your body's ability to make testosterone. It doesn't anymore. And so you need to take responsibility for that and then take care of it.
Yeah. I'm prescribed TRT as well. But I also take the combat test from Jocko Fuel.
Yeah, I do that in my in-between days.
Yep. So I do that to help to regulate. And instead of taking a shot once a week, I actually take the shot, whatever I'm supposed to take within a week. I divide that up, and I take it every other day.
Okay.
And it helps to where you're not going up and then crashing. It's like, boom, you're staying level, which has been awesome. Mm-hmm. I also take the combat test because it has DIM in it, which is a natural anti-estrogen. So I don't have to take the prescribed anti-estrogen because I just don't like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah.
And, man, that is a game changer. Now, I don't take the full amount every day because I don't need to because of the TRT, but taking like 1 to 2 a day is... Man, it's been awesome.
So I do injections twice a week.
Oh, cool. That's good.
And all the other stuff, the anti-estrogen and stuff like that is for me is already in the shot. So it's just one shot. I don't have to do anything else. Yeah, it's awesome. Super easy. And then my in-between days, I'm on the combat. If I'm taking an injection that day, I don't take it.
Yeah.
So, and that keeps me...
Yeah. Have you had to, or have you... taking any peptides for recovery or healing?
Yeah.
Dude, game changer.
Yeah. That first year at camp for me got armbarred my right arm, and I haven't been able to straighten it all the way since.
Oh, shoot. We might need to go get some PRP or stem cell on that elbow, bro.
So I when it starts aching and stuff, it functions. I do what I do. It's kind of weird punching out with my firearm now, but I've made it work. But whenever it starts hurting, I do the injections around it, and it just takes it away.
Yeah. Do you take the 150 BPC 157 TB500?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Man, another great peptide is tesamorelin. It boosts your natural testosterone levels so that actually you can take less TRT and feel just as great.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, peptides are unreal.
Yeah, I like them a lot.
Yeah, they are very nice.
They are very nice. Yeah.
Lucas, what
I
do you
didn't know
got?
you did accents.
Very nice. I like the way it makes me feel.
Awesome.
What do you got for Aaron?
All right,
Aaron. I know you have a lot.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you saw Warfare. What'd you think? What are your thoughts on Warfare?
That movie was intense. I've seen just about every war movie that's out there, but it was like you were there. They did a phenomenal job on that. It was unlike any, and I think because it was made by people that were there, and they could fix a lot of those mistakes that you see in Hollywood. But it was phenomenal. But then the back half of the movie, I had to start fighting through why I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so I was still engaged, but at the same time I'm arguing with myself internally. But it was
Go see it again.
Yeah.
So you can just enjoy the whole thing.
It's one of the great things about being an NCC is we never have those internal arguments. It's the non-commissioned civilians. We don't think about those things. We're just like, oh, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It was intense though. I gotta agree with that.
I have some experience with people that do bad things, and so seeing that kind of hatred and evil also being perpetrated was. I think that if you're an American and that doesn't make you mad, maybe you should check your heart a little bit.
Yeah,
because it definitely made me angry. It made me angry to see my countrymen being hurt, even though I know it was just a reenactment of what happened. It's still what happened.
Yeah,
and it's just it can be hard to deal with that a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, and especially, like you said, you've had a lot of encounters with just bad, evil people.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for people to understand, like, hey, those things exist.
Yeah,
like, just
100%.
putting your head in the sand doesn't take any of those things away. And that's why your courses, the predator awareness courses, are critical. And I love how you said, you're like, hey, I don't want to make you fearful, because we should not be fearful, but we should be prepared.
Exactly.
And when we are educated on things that actually happen, then it allows us to actually take ownership.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I tell people in the predator awareness seminars, I always give them a homework assignment. Say, go into Walmart or just whatever store that you're going into, department store, and just instead of being focused on your kids or your phone or anything else, I just want you to grab a cart and walk around and look at everybody and write down on a piece of paper how many people meet your gaze. So right there, you're going to narrow out everything. You've either got a bad guy or you got the sheepdog or the good guy. You have to determine then which one that is, because those guys are the ones that are going to be up looking around paying attention to everybody else. So the good guy's looking for the bad guy and the bad guy looking for the good guys. So when you start meeting those people, now it narrows it down way easier, and now you can start being aware of who is paying attention and who isn't.
And you are statistically less likely to become a victim by just doing that.
100%. I tell people that all the time, and especially females. Like, if you're walking to your car and you're doing what I just told you to do, where your head's up and you're looking around, and you notice somebody, two aisles over that's trailing you or something like that, one of the best things you can do is make eye contact with them, and just be like, I see you.
Yeah.
Because most predators are going to go for the weaker in the herd. They're going to be going for people who aren't paying attention, that are engrossed or worried about their kids or whatever the case may be. And once they know that you're paying attention to them and you see them and you're aware, and now they're going to move on to the next person. They're going to look for the easy target.
How many people do you need to put on a course like that?
I've done it with as little as, what was that, your place, Connor? 5? So...
Okay, better question. I didn't ask you a good question. If you were to travel down to the DFW area, let's just say Lucas and I wanted to put together a group of people that we know in this area, and or if listeners want to come make it like an event where we wanted to get people together for you to come do this course, about how many people would you need to have, and would it be a 1 day or 2 day, or how does that work?
It's a 1 day, but it's kind of a long course, as there's a lot of material to go over. But to travel down here, 100 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's easy.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Light work. I know a guy with a production company that might be able to handle that.
But the thing is just this is information that needs to get out to the public. So up around us, where I don't have to travel very far, I don't care the group of people but as long as there's people that want to know the information, I'll tell them to it.
Okay. Cool. I like it, man. What else, Lucas?
What was so bad about the polygraph test? You said it was.
Oh my God.
It was bad.
I wanted to know that as well.
I wanna know.
I instantly felt guilty hearing you describe that. I was like, I don't know.
Have you ever taken one?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's horrible. So I'll tell you how it started. So I walk in the room.
The polygraph test itself was horrible. Or the questions were horrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All the above.
Because I've taken one before.
It's horrible. So I go in there, and you're only actually hooked up to the machine for like the last 10 minutes, and he just kind of goes back over a broad spectrum of some of the questions he asked you to see whether or not you're lying. But before that, it's like a 2.5-3 hour interview.
Oh, good grief!
Of literally everything you have ever done or ever thought about doing. So when I walked in the room, it was, what is the one thing you didn't want to tell me coming in here today? That was the first question, number one. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I guess we're going there. But for law enforcement, we're not looking for perfect people, but we're looking for people who can tell the truth.
Yeah.
Because integrity matters. And if you shoot your integrity, in my opinion, if you have lack of integrity, you shouldn't be in law enforcement. It doesn't mean you're a bad person per se, but you shouldn't be in law enforcement, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. You have to be able to do the right thing at the right time. And if you make a mistake, you have to be willing to own up to that mistake and make it right. And so that's what they're looking for in that polygraph. But, the questions ranged, just because of kid-friendly listeners, but it's pretty embarrassing stuff. And then it wasn't just like, have you ever done this? Think of the most embarrassing thing you've ever done. Yes. Okay. Well, tell me about that. And then you talk about it. So it wasn't just like, yes, I've done that. It was like, okay, well, what did you do when you did that? And then sometimes it would branch off from there. Oh, you mentioned, during that, this happened. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Good grief, dude.
It was, and yeah, it was horrible. And then he caveats things with like, hey, you can throw the polygraph off, as far as showing that you're lying, if you're thinking of something that I didn't ask you, but you're thinking of it when I ask you a question when you're hooked up to the machine. It can make the machine think that you're lying. So if you think of something, you just need to tell me. So it's like, and then at some point you take a little bit of a break. You take like a 10-15 minute break. You come back, and of course your mind is racing of all, hey, when I was out there, I thought of this and this, because you don't want to fail out, right? It's just horrible. It is horrible. I haven't met anybody who had a good experience going through the state police with the polygraph. It is.
Dang.
It is horrible.
All right, yeah. That that doesn't sound very exciting.
No.
Yeah,
no.
when you put it that way, I'm like,
Yeah, it's not just hey, have you ever I don't know what would be an appropriate question, but just
yeah, have you ever stole something?
yeah, have you ever stole something? Yes. Oh, tell me about that. And so you describe that situation, which might open up the next time that you stole something or whatever the case may be. And obviously the questions get a lot more embarrassing than that. And and just the very matter-of-fact way that he asks the questions and the language that he uses at times. I mean, it's very proper, but it's like, it takes you back because you're like,
yeah, you're making yourself really vulnerable, and this guy is still pretty rigid.
He just zero craps given. We're just we're gonna drill in on that.
Yeah.
And if you even show like you make a face or whatever, like, hey, you made a face. Tell me what you're thinking. And so it's
Lord.
Yeah. When I walked out,
I'm glad they do that.
I said, "You now officially know more about me than anyone except for my wife."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I wonder how many guys leave that and they're like, I have to talk to my wife about some things before.
I guarantee you it happens. We've weeded so many people out. People have admitted to murders. People have admitted to all sorts of stuff in there. There was one guy that he actually smoked marijuana before he went into the thing, and when he asked him
Thinking
about,
he was gonna.
yeah, when he asked him about his drug, he's like, "Hey, when's the last time you smoked marijuana? Or have you ever smoked marijuana?" Yeah, okay. When's the last time? Right before I came in here. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, well, sorry, champ. That's when they open the door and there's Officer Aaron.
Yeah.
Hey, you did that and you're not supposed to do that.
You can't. You can't do that, right?
Yeah. Why don't you come with me?
Oh man.
What was the most intimidating part of stepping out and starting the gym?
Oh man. Besides the fact of just, getting used to if we believe what we believe in with God, that this is just what we need to do. I've never been one to care about money or finances or anything else like that. It's just like, I'll give it away. I don't care. But whatever, I mean, it's an attack from Satan. I realize that, but it's like, for whatever reason, the amount of money that we're going to have to put forward to do what we need to do just had me in knots about that. And that was extremely intimidating. And then severing some of the ties that I had to switch gyms and go under Formiga and all that, which was a necessary thing to happen. That was really hard. I know that, some of the people involved, they think it was an easy decision or it was, malicious and things like that, but I lost sleep over it. It was a very hard decision to make. It's not one that I wanted to necessarily have to do, but it was a necessary thing to move forward and do what was right for me. So that was extremely intimidating and hard to because I don't like disappointing people. I don't like making people mad. I understand it's necessary at times, but it's not my favorite thing to do, and I really don't like it. So,
I think that's one of the really untalked about things is like the amount of relationships you lose whenever you step out and you actually start to do something.
Yep.
Right. I was talking with Jonathan Montgomery about this actually this afternoon, and realizing that there are people for instance, when you put your health first, and you're out and you're like, hey, you know what, I'm not going to drink. And people are like, well, why?
Yeah.
How come you're not going to drink? But if you told them like, hey, you know what, I decided I'm not going to have water for the next 5 days, they'd be like, bro, bold decision. Cool. But like, hey, I'm not going to have alcohol tonight. They're like, then you get called every name in the book. Yeah. And the same thing when you choose not to have the sweet thing or, not to overindulge on a holiday or those types of things. When you make a decision, particularly like for the future for yourself and your family, that causes discomfort for other people, they would rather you be in a spot where they're comfortable with who you are and what you're doing versus, you actually doing the thing that betters, you and your family and sets you up for success. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a situation where, you're doing something that they wish they had the courage to do or I don't think it's as much as what people say it is, that they just don't want to see us succeed, because I really don't think that's as prevalent. I mean, imagine it goes on some, but I think it's more like you're stepping out and doing something that they didn't have the courage to do, and you're causing them to have to either up their game or be somebody different than they are, and that it's going to push them outside their comfort zone, and they're just not willing to follow you there. And so they do things that kind of drag you down. Like my dad, for instance, I love him. He's one of the best men I know. But whenever I stepped out to do the SEALs or the state police or even this now, he's always got something negative. Like, you sure you want to do that? This and that. And it's always, he wants to be supportive, but he's so scared that the decisions I'm going to make are going to hurt me in some way, or something's going to happen to me, that out of his protectiveness, he's trying to dissuade me from doing it. And so I think it's just a mixture of those things. There's people that care about you that they're afraid to do it, and they can't imagine, all they see is the bad things that could happen, and so they try to talk you out of it. And then there's the people that don't have the courage to step up and do what you're doing, and they don't want you to do it.
Yeah. We had a buddy who started a business, and then one of our friends was talking to him about how ridiculous it was. You're taking this out of your retirement and all that. And he just finally looked at him at the end of the conversation. He was like, dude, you leveraged your 401k to buy your bass boat. Like that's the decision that you made. If this works out for me, in 5 years, I'm going to have 6 of your bass boats, right? And you're still going to be paying off your 401k. And that was one of those things that for him, he was like, well, I still think it's dumb. Like, okay, cool. Like, but if that's all you've got, like, that's really not that helpful,
right?
In the long run. And it's interesting to me that like those are the, that's the type of dichotomy that we see in a lot of people is the person who's trying to give somebody financial advice. Like, don't do this. This is a big risky move. It's like, okay, well, you literally risked your retirement for your fishing boat. So like,
I think that the number one biggest thing that's been an intimidator for me is just that imposter syndrome. Like, do I actually have what it takes to do what I'm doing? And there's some days I feel like I'm completely full of crap. And there's other days that like I feel I'm good to go. Like, I've instructed for the state for a while, and I'm a good teacher. I think I have a way of communicating with people that help them understand. And
you are.
And I really enjoy doing it. As I really try to get in there, especially with like the shooting aspect. We have people that have problems all the time, and I love getting in there, trying to figure out what little thing they're doing wrong that I can change that can help them dial that in, and talking with people and helping them is something I really love to do. But there are days that I'm like, am I just making all this up? Is this all in my head where am I really okay to do this or not? And you have to fight that back. It's hard.
That is hard. Man, that's good. Is there any books that you recommend to people other than, reading the Bible and Extreme Ownership, which we talked about? Is there any other books that you're like, man, you know what? I really enjoyed this book. I learned from it, and I recommend others to read? Or
Oh, man. I've got a pretty extensive library at home. I read so much. Some of the stuff that I've read through and stuff. A lot of the books that I suggest to people are there's a book called Leadership Principles in the SEAL Teams, and it's not necessarily about the SEAL teams itself, but it's not a very a long read, but it's just got solid leadership stuff in there that the guy writes about, and I recommend that a lot for leadership, nice. On top of like the Extreme Ownership, because if you look at my copy of it, it's highlighted and underlined. I got notes in the margin. That's and cool. All kinds of stuff. It's great. And then one of the other books that I have been recommending here lately to people is, especially in law enforcement, is a book called Spy the Lie. Oh. So it's written by 2 CIA investigators that talk about how to interview people and how to determine when someone's being deceptive with you when they're answering questions. And that's been a game changer for me, on the side of the road, because if you imagine doing drug interdiction, you stop somebody hauling 15 kilos, they don't want to tell you about it. So when you're talking to them, it's just trying to determine, when they're telling you the truth and when they're not, and how to be able to be confident in telling them, hey, like, when I asked you this, that was a lie, wasn't it? And just knowing that is a lie. And when you can project that kind of confidence when you ask those questions, a lot of times people will, they'll start telling you the truth about what's going on. So that's one. And then one of the other ones that I've recommended here recently is I think it's called No God But One. So it's a guy who was formerly of the Islam religion, and he turned Christian, and he goes in this book. He goes through the book and compares Christianity with Islam, and kind of like points out, because he was, I think I'm going to get it wrong, what they call somebody that's I don't know, like a preacher in Islam. I think it's
an imam.
Yeah, yeah.
Imam.
Yeah, he was, or I think he says scholar in the book. I may be wrong.
Okay.
But either way, he compares the two and just like points out, how and why Christ is the King and once for all. And that's a really good book. It's really eye-opening. It helps you see the other side, but at the same time, strengthens your faith on your side, and knowing that what Jesus says is the truth. So,
And that was No God But One?
No God But One. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
That's a great book.
Dude, well, I just want to say thank you for everything that you do for everybody, man. Your heart is incredible. And proud to call you a friend. Proud to call, to have you in my life. Just last year at immersion camp when our son Aiden went, he stayed with you guys in the cabin. And I was...
Young warrior.
Young warrior. I was excited because, that was part of Amanda and I. It's like, okay, well, he could stay with Amanda and I and the girls separate because we stay off camp just because of lodging purposes. And selfishly, I wanted him to. Like, I love my son. I want him around.
Sure. Yeah.
But I also know that as a father, like him being around godly men like you guys in that cabin was only going to help him, was going to develop him, and he was so excited when I told him that you guys were in town, and Amanda was all excited, and we're looking forward to us being able to go. I know you guys are going to train tonight. I cannot. I will be there tomorrow night, and then having you guys over to the house for dinner afterwards is going to be awesome. And he's so excited, and just you're an amazing man, and the guys that you surround yourself with, these guys here in studio just watching and listening are phenomenal, and the guys that are listening that were at camp, like for me as a father, like knowing that I have friends that make my family better and stronger is just. It's something I'm very thankful for. And for all of our listeners, like you taking the time out of this trip to come share your knowledge and life lessons with, I know it's awesome and I appreciate it. And there's a lot of value that you shared with our listeners. And I know Lucas is going to close it out, but we always like to have our listeners, before I close it at the very end, I'm going to have you just share kind of a final thought. It doesn't, whatever kind of God puts on your heart, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, all right.
Well, before we close it out with some final thoughts, thank you all for supporting the podcast, for checking us out, for subscribing on YouTube, for going and following us on Instagrams. If you want to be part of the conversation and talk about what we're talking about, or just throw us a question for some of our Q&A episodes, you can find us. I'm at Lucas Pinker. JP is at JP Dinnell, 2 N's, 2 L's. You don't want to follow all of that, just go follow at JP Dinnell Podcast. We got reels that are coming up all the time. We're telling the stories in parts, which has been a lot of fun because I'm putting them out like one piece at a time. And I don't know why, for me, that's exciting, but it is. It's just one of those things where I'm like, oh, I'm going to tell this part of the story, and then wait. And then I'll get the dings in the comments, and I'm like, you don't get that until tomorrow. So it's like I get to be withholding, which is really nice for me. I have a lot of fun with that. You can check out at 5 Stones Jiu_Jitsu on Instagram as well, and send Aaron a DM because apparently he responds to him. You might even get his phone number. I don't have it yet, but you guys could
send him a video message.
Oh yeah, send him a video message. Apparently they get bigger and better responses. Has that happened yet? JP's going to check out something. Not been
on my phone.
All right, so also make sure that you check out at Echelon Front, the leadership consulting company started by Jocko and Leif. We talked about extreme ownership. If you want to be part of that extreme ownership online academy, you got to go be part of those Monday classes. You can send them an email at info@echelonfront.com or go sign up with them at echelonfront.com. We've got FTX. Do we have a date for the one in October? Coming up? The individual FTX?
So FTX 17 sold out, and Cody and I just launched FTX 18. That will be here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That'll be on 2 days. It'll start, registration meet and greet will start on Wednesday night in the initial kickoff class, so October 1st, and then the FTX will be on on Thursday and Friday, the 2nd and 3rd.
Nice. And Heather Rodriguez, if you're watching, I need my FTX Hydro Flask to complete my collection.
We got you.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Shameless. Why you're
shameless
whispering.
ask. So that you don't put the kibosh on it, as they say. Also, check out Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. It's a ministry that we're a part of. We got new episodes that come out every Tuesday. And coming up May 24th, Memorial Day weekend, because we know you're traveling, we know you got stuff to do. We want to give you a reason to have to eat that extra barbecue on Monday when you celebrate with the fam. And that reason would be because you trained really hard on May 24th with Marcus Buchecha coming into town at Eastside Dojo, doing a free jiu-jitsu clinic. Matt Chandler's going to be there speaking as well. Matty Chan's, who he posted about me on Instagram. Oh. Yeah, he did. He got blood on his gi, and he was like, not mine, my blood. Matty Chandler had my
nice.
blood on his gi. Yep.
A little pastor on pastor jiu-jitsu
Yeah,
blood.
it was he's got the boniest forearms of any human being on the planet.
Yeah, we need to get him a soft origin gi because bony elbows and that gi he
Everything
wears.
about that guy is so sharp. His wit and his appendages.
Yeah.
So, and he's really tall, which is just
And good at jiu-jitsu.
yeah. All of those things make him difficult for me. So check out Little Cattle Co. Also, it is a Texas beef company that JP is a part of. LittleCattle.co.
Get that beef.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Aaron is going to be getting his beef sticks on. So if you want to also be like Aaron and be in the game and awesome, you can email Amanda at littlecattle.co. Get yourself in on that stuff. Also, the wonderful beef tallow products, the invigorating coffee scrub, which I'm telling you right now, research has shown that very little will actually cause hair to regrow, but coffee grounds are promising. So you want some of that body scrub, put it on your noggin. For those of us who have short hair and are follically challenged, that hairline's retreating, put a little bit on there. See whether or not that caffeine gets rid of all that DHT. Who knows? It could. If it doesn't, then, I'm sorry. Check us out at On the Path Printing also if you've got printing or apparel needs. And if you want to learn how to do it like the guys on TU Bruiser, go check out Bruiser Arms. It's named that way for a reason. And Jocko, Leif, JP started that company. They do custom gear packages. They do custom training. And they, along with our friends over at Origin, have a little partnership with the Half Face Blades. And their Amazon box openers that are part of those gear packages are pretty right. And Vortex, there's a partnership going on with them to do some optics stuff for that.
Also, people that come to the individual FTX, like you get a one-time discount code for Vortex optics that, depending on the optic that you're buying, could offset the cost of the FTX, which is kind of crazy.
That's insane.
It's crazy what my buddy, who's the president of the company, offered for attendees.
Nice.
It's unreal.
Heather Rodriguez sent me that coupon code as well. And also thanks to, we talked about them a lot today, Origin and Jocko Fuel. Best stuff in the game. The new Origin, well, I guess the reissue Origin geese.
Re-release.
Yeah, the re-release. Pretty awesome. I got an email about the Pearl. The new Pearl is coming out. I'm stoked about that. And and this is a new thing for me, but they just did a partnership for a single blade razor with a company in Montana, and it looks so sleek.
Pretty rad.
Yeah, so we were comparing. I need to take more creatine. It helps with your cognitive function as well. Everybody should be on creatine. There's all kinds of studies about it. I'm not going to go into it. We've talked about it enough. But I was comparing the prices. So they're like actual flagship razor for this company, and I forget what the name of the company is, but it's like $80. And then like the super nice one is like $130. The Origin one is like right there in the middle, and it looks a lot like the super nice one. It's got all the super nice one's features, plus it's got some of the cool Origin badging. And I think that this might be like going to get the Origin razor might be the hack that you need to actually save a little bit of money and have a cooler piece of toiletware equipment than other people.
I need to check that out.
Yep, it looks pretty awesome, and single blade, way better for your face. Yeah, you don't get all that pitting, those pock marks. You don't have all that skin irritation.
It's good to know, especially for guys like Aaron and I that
wear a Class A uniform in the wintertime and just.
Yep.
Oh gosh, I hate that.
Well, that's why you got to wrap up with some of that Little Cattle Co. beef tallow. Just give a nice small coating of that. It'll actually keep you warm, like on there kept you warm.
I got a really bad sunburn this weekend.
Yeah.
And
I've definitely not been looking at that periodically throughout.
Yeah.
Whenever you've like moved your arm, it's like,
Just
it's like a hypercolor.
yeah, you can see that difference. Well,
Yeah.
that when I came back that evening and every day since. So that was on Saturday. I've just put the tallow products that we have at Little Cattle Co. on it, and it hasn't peeled. It hasn't done anything. And I'm Irish and Scottish, and I burn, then I peel. I burn, and then I peel. That's what I do, but not anymore. So it's kind of nice. So, all right, Aaron, my man, what final closing thoughts do you have?
Well, I got a question now. You said you were Scottish.
Okay.
Do you know what clan you're from?
I do not. I don't know any of that stuff.
I'm interested if we're from the same clan.
I don't know how I'd do that research.
I would watch How to Train Your Dragon or Brave.
I don't think that'll get you there, but it might.
I'm pretty sure I'm Dingwall.
Oh my gosh. All right, I will figure that out somehow, I guess.
I'll get you a tartan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Aaron.
Well, I'm from the clan Gunn, Gunn. So,
Okay. That's
Yeah.
a pretty cool clan to be a part of.
I'm just going to adopt you and say we're from the same one.
I'm down. That's good. Okay.
Right on. Closing thoughts for me, I have to push back to the people that made it possible for me to do what I do.
Let's go.
Honestly, because, without, my wife planned this entire trip. She's been so supportive, no questions asked. As soon as, she had the thought that we should open this gym, she's just been all in, with everything, all my crazy things that I've done, just all in supportive of me. And then, my training partners, some of them are sitting back over here. I'm going to make them famous right now. Old Sensei Brandon.
Sensei.
Yeah, Sensei.
I'll pay for that tomorrow night on the Mats of Justice, but I earn my
I'll probably pay today.
my whoopings.
Nobody makes me bleed my old brother, Sensei. But no, those guys have really pushed me to get where I'm at and have really poured into me and helped me, with my jiu-jitsu, and then also just given me the courage to step out and do what I'm doing. And I wouldn't be able to do it without them. So, and then Formiga, I mean, God love that guy.
Yeah.
I fell in love with that guy the moment that I saw him, and he said the same thing about me, and he's been so accommodating and helping me out, and just pushing me forward, and just no issue. So easy to work with him. We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing without guys like that. So I really have to push back to not me, but it's all the people that are around me that support me and help me do what I'm doing. And that's really who deserves the credit for this, not me.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, that's the power of being a good human, doing the right things for the right reasons. Your intention has always been in the right direction, and also it's a testament to how important relationships are.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You've done a phenomenal job of that, my friend. So, well, we appreciate you guys listening. I hope this episode has been a reminder to go do the work that's needed, to put in the effort, to build your legacy, and to never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 86.